The moment that you began playing with the Ouija board is the moment that you open the door, you've given the invitation. You don't know who you're speaking with.
We played the Ouija board and we wrote a song about it. So we wrote a song about pretty much everything that we did. Right. And we stopped playing the Ouija board because like we was sitting on a bunk bed and Lazy was asking who was going to die first in his family. And he was like, when he found out it was somebody that he didn't want, so he threw the Ouija board and then they picked it back up and then beds started falling down. So a whole bunch of stuff started happening.
Some real like, shit.
Right, and I ain't fucking with that shit no more. So, right. You know, we learned our lesson hands-on. And then when Eazy-E, he was like, y'all gotta do that song, man. I like that Ouija song y'all did, man. And then he started talking backwards. And then after he passed, here comes the marketing and the promotional train, and here comes the company. Right. You know what we need to do? Let's make some money off of it. So
the Ouija board that we played with, and I'm not making no excuses, the Ouija board that we played with was a board game made by Parker Brothers. And we bought it, and it was bought from Toys R Us. Whoever brought it around. It was purchased from Toys R Us. Now, that don't make it cool, like I said, because it was still something we shouldn't have we shouldn't have been partaking in, point blank, bottom line, period. Should have stayed away from it. But you have to remember this happened when we were very young kids. I was 16 at the time, about to turn 17, and we were young and curious and stupid, and many times we did stupid things, as many youngsters do growing up.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I done so much stupid stuff that I look back and like, damn, I was a dummy for doing that.
We played with one too.
Even some things I did in my 20s. Yeah. And 30s. Oh, that was stupid.
40s for me too.
Yeah, it was 40. Even yesterday.
Straight up.
Even yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
it seemed innocent though that Ouija.
You're gonna make mistakes. And so I was home one day, Lil Lay and one of my dudes named Wally come over to the house, you know, and they was like, yo, we gotta show you something. And I'm like, what? They're like, you gonna trip off this. And I'm like, what? You know, what is it? So we went over to Lay Mama house, you know what I'm saying? And we went to his bedroom and they closed the door and he was like, look what we got. And they put out a Ouija board. Now, I had never seen a Ouija board ever. I didn't even know what it was. And they said somebody had given it to them and showed them how to play it. So I thought nothing of it, you know what I'm saying? We all sat down. We all sat down on the bed, and it was like, you got to be serious when we play this. Okay. They said, you got to be, they said, you can't be joking around, you got to be serious. So they were playing, and I'm sitting back watching, and they start saying, Ouija, are you with me? You know, and that's where we got the idea for the song, you know, of course. But they start saying, Ouija, are you with me? And I'm looking around the room saying to myself, who the hell are they talking to?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then I started thinking it was a joke, and I'm thinking somebody gonna bust out the closet on me or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay. You know, because we always prank each other like that. You know what I'm saying? So they started asking all these questions, and the thing started moving. But honestly, to this day, no lie. I actually think it was Layne, my dude, moving it. Like, no lie. They tried to put a fast one on me.
You think it didn't work?
They tried to put it, because when I tried it, it never moved for me.
Right.
It never moved for me. I don't know if it's because it was a Parker Brothers one, and we didn't and we didn't take it down to the bayou to get the voodoo put on it. To get the voodoo put on it, or what it was, you know what I'm saying? But it never worked for me. So then we played it the second time at my mama's house, and we asked it a bunch of questions about us making it and all that. Again, they played it and I watched it because I was having a hard time believing that it was actually moving by itself. I'm like, bro, I don't believe it.
All right.
And then that same night, my mother came upstairs in my room and caught us playing it, bro. She flipped her wig, bro. My mama never used to cuss. Never used to curse, bro. Never used curse words. She sounded like a drunken sailor that night. She was like,
That day.
y'all get your asses the fuck out of here right now, bro. Like, no lie, bro. She was like letting us have it, like.
Using a Ouija board in the hood.
N E V. Never. This shit don't work. I'm out.
We played Ouija board at 3 a.m. in a haunted asylum.
Good turn red.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's a sign, low key.
Bro, explain that again?
So basically, EMF meter, what they do is ghost hunters, they communicate with ghosts, like electric magnetic field. You heard that?
Understood.
We contacted evil spirits playing Ouija board.
666.
What? Twin. Yo, that's blood for real.
I'm holding on.
Fresh blood, cuz. That's fresh blood.
Play it.
Shit, cuz, I swear there ain't any spirits here tonight. Whoa. We not even moving shit, cuz.
Right here being green. If it turns, yeah.
Good turn red.
Whoa.
Yeah. Electric magnetic field. You heard?
Understood. Will we make it out alive?
My friends caught the craziest thing on video. Just watch this.
Hi. Goodbye. Oh my god, what does that mean?
The planchette moved by itself. Here's another angle.
Oh my god, what does that mean?
I didn't even realize this happened because when I was editing my video, my camera just went straight up without getting that part. But they got two different angles of the planchette clearly moving away from her hand, and this was after it went nuts and we were like freaking out. Let me know what you guys think of that. Oh my gosh!
Story time. So I was in my freshman year of college. I was still living at home with my parents, and my grandparents were actually living with us at the time as well. They were in a transitional period. They were moving from their hometown to ours. They were getting a little bit older and wanted to be closer to family. So I remember one night, this was before I ever started sleeping with a television or a nightlight in my room. My room was always jet black. For some reason, I had to get up and use the bathroom really, really bad. So I decided to get up. I walked towards the sliver of light that was coming through the door. And at that same time, I heard my grandparents' bedroom door open up. Now, our doors, if you don't know, were really long. The bottom of the door would always drag the carpet, make a sound when you would, open and close the door. So I heard that sound, and then I heard these footprints, like a sloughing of footprints and slippers, and in the gate of the walk, I knew it was my grandmother. I'll just wait for her to get finished, and then I'll go in myself. So there I was sitting in the bed, it was like 5 minutes later, and I had not heard the commode flush. I had not heard the door open, any more sloughing of feet as they walked through the hallway, or their bedroom door open and close again. I just heard nothing. So I got a little concerned, so I thought I'd go check. So I, went to the door again and opened the door and kind of peeked through to see. I could see the hallway. I could see the bathroom door. And to my surprise, the bathroom door was wide open. There was no light on. And then I looked at my grandparents' door, and their door was shut. And then I just got this wave of chills and the hair standing on the back of my neck. And I thought, that is really, really weird. I know I was not asleep. I didn't miss anything. There was just nothing. So as puzzled and perplexed as I was, I said, you know what, I've got to go. I don't care. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. So I ran and I got back out and I went to bed, tried to go back to sleep. And this is where the creepy stuff starts happening. I start hearing the shuffling of feet again, as though they're walking through the carpet on bedroom slippers. And instead of it being down the hallway, it sounded like it was coming from inside my bedroom, coming closer to me. And I couldn't see anything. It was freaking me out. I totally went into this panic mode. And what made it worse was that I couldn't move. I could turn my head left to right. I could roll my eyes back and forth. I could open up my mouth. But I couldn't make any sounds. I started screaming for my mom and my dad. It was just dead silent. I couldn't move my lower body at all. That fight or flight syndrome just kicked all in. And in my mind was telling me these steps are getting closer. And if you don't get out of your room, it's going to be very bad. I felt like I was going to be not here anymore. The problem I had was I couldn't move. So I thought to myself, if I'm dreaming, I'm going to try to wiggle my hands. I want to bite my finger to make sure that I am not dreaming. And if I'm awake, I want to make sure that I'm awake. So I started wiggling my hands and sure enough, I started to get mobility back in my hands. And at that same time, I put my finger in my mouth and I just chomped down as hard as I could, and it hurt like hell. And I knew right then and there that I was not asleep. I was awake. So I bolted out of that room. I did not even go to my parents' room. I didn't even feel safe with them there. I just felt like whatever was in my room was worse than anything on this earth. So I run downstairs. I go to the family room. I turn on all the lights, including the television, and I stay up all night long. I was terrified. I would not go back to sleep whatsoever. And that was the start of many, many more occurrences. And if you want to give me a follow, I'm going to talk more about all of the personal experiences that I've had, including some other fun, interesting, unsolved, or supernatural stories. That's what I've got. It's pretty creepy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope to see you in the next one.
This is a very scary and dark part of my past. I just came across this TikTok, and trust me. Okay, let's watch it first.
Nerds, Salem, Massachusetts has decided to build the world's largest Ouija board. Look at them. This is a case of if you fuck around, you're going to find out. And you know what? No.
Grab your popcorn and hold on to your bestie's hand, because this is going to be a scary one. If you're new here, I am Cuban and I live in Jamaica. I started attending boarding school in Cuba when I was 14 years old. I was in dance school, and we went to dance school to study Afro-Cuban dance. We study the culture, our African roots, and everything that has to do with the African deities. Everybody was very superstitious. Up to this day, I am still a very superstitious person. One night, one of my friends had the brilliant idea of making a Ouija board. In Spanish, we call it Ouija. Everybody was very excited, and let me tell you, you don't need nothing fancy to do this. We use piece of paper, piece of cardboard, a pen, and a cartabon. How you said that in English? Two of my friends put them hand in the cartabon, and the things start to move around. Everybody creeped out. Some people started laughing. Some people could not believe it. Those who believe it, we stay around and we started asking questions. And these, whatever it was, started predicting things. Okay? Now, fast forward many years, everything that was predicted on that night came true. However, we never know say it was real back then, because time don't pass yet, and only time can tell what will happen. We asked it about our future, where we were going to be. It said, you're going to be in Europe, that person is in Europe. You're going to go to work in the House of Culture, that is exactly what happened. It even said that a male student that was very popular was going to go to prison, and we were like, what? Where would he go to prison? They took a trip to Martinique, and he ended up in prison. And that was something that happened before school was out. So as these things started manifesting that were mentioned on that Ouija board, we started freaking out as years were passing by. And then after that, we grew up, and then we realized that, yeah, the things that were said were actually real. Nonetheless, that night, before we finished talking to whatever was on the other side, moving that cartabon, we asked for it to give us a sign. And it said, okay, go to the second floor. I didn't go because I was so scared. But the other girls went. They went to the second floor and they hold on to the railing, and as they were holding on to the railing started shaking. I have goosebumps because I know it was real, because there were people there that didn't believe in it and they felt it. Anyways, school was over and it was summer break. I was so hooked with the Ouija thing. I made my own and I started playing with it by myself. Now that me is a big woman, me sorry say me do such foolishness. I should have never done that. But please don't judge. I'm an only child, and the whole of my friends them gone places, and me was just bored. There was no cable TV, there was no internet, there was no nothing. It was me and the Ouija board. Here comes this entity called that keep on. Back then I thought it was a name, Ankara. Okay, and this thing said Ankara, so I thought it was a lady named Ankara. And in my mind, this lady named Ankara said that she knew my grandmother. Okay, so like a backstory. My great grandfather is from Lebanon. He migrated to Cuba from Lebanon. Okay, there is a place in Turkey near that place that is called Ankara. Okay, so this, where it was on the Ouija board, was saying that they knew my grandmother. Bear in mind, my mother's name is after her grandma's name, but that grandmother that she said she knew, or he or it said it knew, I never went further to ask for the name. Now, some of my mother's friends, well, everybody was very excited about this, and they will gather around when I was playing, and they will ask questions and it will answer. I don't know if it's what they wanted to hear. Most of the time people were like taken aback and thin, but during the summer I would go to my mother's workplace. Bear in mind, I was like 14-15 years old. 14? Was I 14 still? Yes, I was 14. Yeah, I was about 14-15 years old. Bear in mind, I go to my mother's workplace, and all these big people gather around this 14-year-old who is playing Ouija and start asking questions. All Cuban people are very superstitious. This particular friend of my mother, her husband had migrated to Canada, and she wanted to know if she would go to Canada or not. For Cubans back then, it was very difficult to travel, so it was like a big thing. So she asked me to go to her house, and all of this for free now. Me not get no little change. She asked me to go to her house. I sat in the living room on the dining table. I mean, it was a small studio apartment, a little edificio in Cuba. She started asking, okay, so the cartabon will move around, we gather all the letters and we made the words and we answer the questions. So this said that yes, that she was going to go to Canada, that her daughter and her son were going to go to Canada, everything. Then she wanted to know if her son was going to marry his girlfriend, and the Ouija said no. She got very upset because she did love her daughter. Well, it was a girlfriend, but she loved her son girlfriend. And then the Ouija said, she asked, who is it going to marry? And the Ouija said, Jenny. Now what happened is that the current girlfriend name was Jenny. He was going, so it was like, no man, this is confusing, this not make no sense, it looked like you're not being serious. And she got upset because how is he going to say that he's not going to marry his girlfriend, but he's going to say that he's going to marry Jenny? Like, you're not being genuine, you know, I think it's time for you to go. And I said, all right, not a problem, pack up my thing and gone. Guess what happened? Fast forward wholly by years, son married a girl from another Cuban province, and her name is Jenny. And I'm sure she doesn't remember. I'm sure she doesn't remember none at all. This is almost the last time I utilize the Ouija, right? I go to my English teacher. I take private English lessons and I go to her house and she's trying to talk to her husband because her husband passed away. But instead, a friend of mine from high school who had passed away from a brain tumor came along. And he said, hi, it's me. I'm not going to mention his name. So I told her, she said, I'm very close friends with his grandmother. I am going to call her. She called the grandmother and the grandmother came over. And he said, Grandma, please stop crying. You sit on the border of the bed and one day you're going to fall off because you sit on the border of the bed and you cry. And she started crying. And she wanted to leave. And she wanted to find out how I knew that was happening. So me just couldn't manage and we just stopped there. She just got really upset and she started crying and everything. It was very emotional for her. It was her only grandson and he had passed away and it was just very, very emotional. So she just left. And then I started predicting my English teacher's future through the Ouija board. And it seems like I'm gonna need to do a part 2 to this video. So make sure to check out part 2 where I tell you why I stopped playing the Ouija board and why I will never play the Ouija board again. Thank you so much for watching. Mucha love. This is part 2 of why I said that it's a really bad idea to mess up with a Ouija board. If you missed part 1, make sure to check out the playlist right there. So I'm gonna put the 2 episodes there nicely together for you so it's easy to find. So I left you when I was with my English teacher and my friend from high school, or somebody who was in the same grade as me, had passed away and who was talking to his grandmother. Then my English teacher started asking questions about her future. And the Ouija said that she was going to go back to America. She was living in America for some time. That's how she knew English. She was going to go back to America and she was going to remarry, and it even gave the name of the man that she was going to remarry. Fast forward 1 gazillion years, that exactly same thing happened. She married the same man, name, and everything. Now bear in mind, this is me alone. Nobody else is putting their fingers in the little cartabon that is moving across the piece of paper and putting all the letters together. While all of this is happening and all this communication is happening, I have goosebumps from head to toe and tears are coming out of my eyes. I am not crying with sentiments, emotions, or anything like that. Tears are just rolling down my face. Don't forget, I was about 14, 15 years old. Around that time, another friend of mine, we were not very close, but we were like friends. She passed away in an accident. It was a church trip. Unfortunately, the vehicle lost control and a lot of girls passed away during that trip. She was one of them. I went to the cemetery to visit her grave and carry flowers because I wasn't able to go to her funeral because I was in school. And when I reached home, of course, I had to talk to her. We'll never forget, I was sitting outside in my veranda. I was home alone. She came on and she told me not to worry, that she was okay, that she didn't feel anything and that she was okay, but that she had to go now. I have to go now, and you have to stop doing this. So she said that I would have to stop doing what I was doing because who I thought I was talking to, it was not the reality, and that he was very upset and that he was coming for her. Now, she at that time, she wasn't like, she took the board over from this Ankara entity that I thought I was talking with, that was giving me all that information, and the he that she was referring to was not this Ankara entity or whatever it was. The he that she was talking about was somebody else, and that somebody else was very upset that she was there, and she had to run and to please take this piece of paper, burn it, and do not do this ever again. So when all of remember, you have the cartabon in your fingertip and the thing and move up and down and all these words are forming, and I'm just there reading everything, and just like processing. You have to put the letters together and process the information slowly. But let me tell you something. As she said, I asked, are you still there? And nothing happened. I was like, okay, I'm done. And I am done with this. And I am not doing this ever again in my life, because you're not supposed to be messing with things like that. It was a very scary period, very dark and scary period. And then to let time play itself and have all these things unfold. And I never asked anything about myself, because I have never wanted to know my future. I just want my future to happen. And a lot of people always reaching out to me on social media, say, oh, I can read you. And I'm like, no, thank you. No, me no want know what I want it to be a surprise. Me no want to prepare for nothing. Me want it to be a surprise, and me want to deal with the situation as it unfold and as it happen. So yeah, for these people in Massachusetts who created the world's biggest Ouija board, me sorry for uno, and me I pray for uno, and I just really hope that nothing like whole heap of weird stuff start happening over there. So because this is like a portal that opens to things that don't supposed to be opening to. So let me know if you enjoyed the story, and thank you so much for watching. Much love.
Ouija boards, okay? And as a kid, I was addicted to playing Ouija board. My summer routine, like for years on end, would be to wake up, get on my little bike with my Ouija board in my backpack, and bike around town and knock on all my little friends' doors and see who wanted to come out and play Ouija board with me. And sure enough, there was always some little bitch who was ready to come out and play Ouija board with me, okay? The girlies, they love talking to ghosts. The boys, hell no. The boys would not come out and play Ouija board with me, but all the little girlies, they were ready to commune with the dead, okay? They were ready to open up a portal to the spirit realm at the drop of a hat. All right. So me and my little girlfriends, we used to play Ouija board, and I had some regulars who would pretty much always be down. And then there was some people who would come in and out because sometimes they would get too scared. They would have to take a break. It was scary sometimes, you know. We had some weird stuff happen, but nothing gets weirder than this one summer that made everyone stop playing Ouija board with me. So this one summer, I'm starting to escalate with the Ouija board, and it just wasn't enough for me to go out in the morning, find people to play Ouija board, sit down on a sunny sidewalk and commune with the dead, okay? It just wasn't enough. It wasn't spooky enough. My routine was that I would do it. I had a pager. I know this is dating me. I had a pager, and my mom would beat me when it was time to come home. So, I would do it into the dark a little bit, but it just wasn't spooky enough still. What I decided to do was that I was going to start sneaking out of my house and going into the woods near my house at night. And I encouraged my friends to do the same. So we would all sneak out of our houses, and we would all go down into the woods. And there was this stream that ran through my whole town. I grew up in a very small town, okay, baby? It was not even a mile big. It was a very small town. So what we would do is we would go there at night. I had a little lantern with a little candle in it. I had my Ouija board. We'd go out to the woods, and we'd sit in this area way in the back of the woods where the stream was on one side, there was a little tiny path, and then there were woods on the other side. So we'd sit in this little path between the stream and the woods. Set down a little lantern. That was our only light besides the moon above, and we would play Ouija board. And consistently, we started speaking to a spirit every single time we went there. And this spirit told us that its name was JX, and that it was a little girl who had been eaten by wolves, and that she was haunting these woods because that's where she was eaten by wolves. This is kind of a sad story, right? We were a bunch of little girls ourselves. We were probably like 12, 13 years old ourselves, and the spirit is telling us that it's a little girl that was eaten by wolves. So we felt a kinship with her, and we felt like we had to keep talking to her and keep going back. So JX became our friend, and we would go out there almost every night and talk to her for a long time. We were sneaking out of our houses constantly and going out there and talking to JX. And things escalated pretty quickly. One of the things that we noticed is that as we were talking to her, we would start to hear pacing out in the woods next to where we were sitting. And we would look into the woods, and we couldn't see anything out there. It was just the pitch black of the woods, but we would hear footsteps pacing back and forth alongside where we're sitting. So at one point we asked the board, we say, JX, is that you out there? And she said yes. So we were like, oh, okay, so that's her. She's pacing over there and she's talking to us through the board. This makes sense, right? But things kept getting weirder. And it got to the point where we realized that JX would do little party tricks, right? Like one of us would take our hands off the board and we'd ask a question that like only we could answer, right? And we would see if the board would give an answer. And it would like read our minds. So we were like, wow, she's really in tune with us. And some of the girls started getting really spooked. And they stopped coming. People were getting really creeped out. They were having dreams about like this little girl who was like all torn up. So it was really affecting some of them. But of course, my morbid ass, I was like, this is so exciting. This is so great. So I kept going every single night. And whoever was down to come with me would come. Sometimes it was just only me and one other girl. But no matter what, I was there almost every night for this entire summer. Until there was one night, right? We're sitting there. We're talking to the board, and I start to really listen to those footsteps out in the woods, okay? I'm really tuned into them. And I start to realize that it doesn't really sound like feet stomping, you know, on the twigs, on the branches. It was almost like this hard, like clip, clop sound. And I'm like, you know what? It sounds like hose. Like hose out in those woods. Just pacing back and forth. So I took my hands off the board. I felt this like cold chill running through me. And I looked down at the board and I asked, JX, is that really you out there? I watched with my friends touching the planchette. I watched the planchette slide to yes. Went back to the center. Everybody's quiet. They're all looking at me now because they could tell that my mood has shifted significantly. So I say, JX, do you have hooves? And the planchette starts to slide to yes. The window on that planchette just got over yes before my friends flew up. They threw the Ouija board. They all started running. I had to gather up the Ouija board, gather up everything with them already down the path, already out of sight, okay? I'm gathering everything up. I hear the pacing in the woods stop. I grab my shit, I start running, and I hear footsteps running behind me the whole way out of the woods until we get out to the streetlights. And then I felt almost like cobwebs on me. It was like this weird feeling like something was stuck to me. So I started doing this motion, like I was ripping something off of me. And I said, it's following us. So we went back to my house. I fancied myself a little witch, right? So I had sage, I had all this shit. I started like burning sage on us and like throwing salt water on everybody and like banging bells. And it was like, we don't want you to follow us. You are not welcome to follow us. You cannot attach to us. JX, you tricked us. And I was like talking to her out loud. And at that point, I felt this like kind of cobweb feeling come off of me. It stopped, all right? And nobody really wanted to go back. But of course, I couldn't stay away. It took me a while to start going back. But when I went back all by myself, nothing really happened. Until many, many years later. I'm talking like 15 years later, right? I'm a full-grown adult now. I started dating who was then my boyfriend, but is now my husband. We start dating, and I bring him... Do you notice these lights have just started flickering? Did they just start, or were they doing this the whole video? I'll only know when I start editing this. Shit happens when I start talking about JX, so you better watch your back, because something might happen to you now that I've told you about it. I took my then boyfriend, now husband, out into those woods. And I was telling him, you know, about all the spooky shit that we used to do as kids. And I hadn't gotten to JX yet, but I was getting to it. And as we're standing out on that path where I used to talk to JX, we start hearing footsteps in the woods. This is in broad daylight, baby. And my husband is a huge skeptic. Shit does not happen around him. He's like a ghost blocker, okay? But we start hearing these footsteps. He freezes, I freeze. I look over into the woods, and he's looking at the woods, and I said, don't worry, I'm going to get to you. And the pacing stopped. And he's looking at me, he's like, what is going on? And I was like, I'll tell you all about it, but we got to get out of these woods. And we walk out, and I tell him the whole story of JX, and he was so fucking creeped out, bro. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know if anything happens to you now that you know about JX. I love Ouija boards, okay? And as a kid, I was addicted to playing Ouija board.
It's about the Ouija board. I don't know, but I just know I had a bad experience and I don't want to play with one again. And this is what happened. So when I was in school, my friend and I, a guy friend, we bought the Ouija board from a toy store. We played with it a few times. It moved, but nothing really scary happened, right? So I had it for a while. But then I brought it to school and I used it with a friend. I'll just call her Alicia. That's not her real name. And the thing started working like really well. It spelled out, the planchette thing started moving and it spelled out it was a man. His name was Daniel. We asked, when did you die? It said 1938 of tuberculosis. He was a 6 foot tall, blonde haired, blue eyed guy. Actually, I'm not sure about the blue eyes. Blonde hair for sure, from England. And then it said, I love you, Alicia. And she was absolutely thrilled to have this beautiful ghost in love with her. I'm thinking the whole time this is her moving it. You know, because he's totally is her type, and I'm thinking she's either moving it consciously or unconsciously. Well, a few days later, we tried it again, and it doesn't work. Nothing's moving it. And we're sitting there for like 20 minutes, and she's super frustrated, so I'm thinking, that's weird. If she's moving it, then why isn't it moving this time? All right, third time around, we get you guys to join us at night. We go to a place of school, and we start using it, and this time it says, hi, this is Daniel. And she's like, oh, really happy. Daniel's back. Daniel's back. And we start asking questions, and then suddenly I feel all the hairs on the back of my neck and on my arm stand up. I felt there was something bad in the room with us for no reason. Nothing weird was happening. And then suddenly the planchette starts moving in circles, in circles, in circles, and I'm freaking out. But before I go on to tell you what happened, the backstory is several years prior when my friend Alicia was in middle school, she felt a presence on top of her, pushing her down when she's sleeping, trying to molest her. She could not move or scream or anything, and she had to pray in her head and will the thing to go away, and it went away. So fast forward to this night, we're using the Ouija board, the thing's going circle, 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 and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, what's happening? Because I was already scared. Well, then the thing spells out, I lied. I'm not Daniel. And then it says, I'm from hell. And then it says to my friend Alicia, do you remember me from that night? And then it spelled out, I will rape you tonight. And she lost it. She started screaming out of fear. We told the thing to go away, go away, go away. And finally it went away. And we drove around all night until the sun came up before we dropped her off at school. And if I didn't feel that presence before this happened, I would have thought somebody's messing with us. But I swear I felt a dark presence in the room with us. I don't know how to explain it, but that's my Ouija board story, and that's only half of the story. But after that, I swear I don't want to play with one anymore. What are your opinions about the Ouija?
What the fuck?
A deliberate attempt to contact the spirit of a deceased person is known as a seance. I have a skill you might like.
What the fuck?
Wanna try it? Chee-hee! 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 Chee-hee!
Hello? Oh my God!
I grew up in a really religious household, and I was told psychics, ghosts, Ouija boards, all of that stuff was completely demonic and to stay far away from it. So whenever I had my first sleepover when I was 11 or 12 years old at my buddy's house, I did what any obedient son would do and completely rebelled against what my parents told me and decided to play my buddy's Ouija board. We were completely inexperienced, didn't know what we were doing. I was a little apprehensive because, I was told that I would bring a demon home if I tried any of this stuff. But I wasn't that worried about it because I did it anyway. And we spent probably an hour or two trying to reach out to the other side to see if we could communicate with whoever or whatever's out there. And nothing happened that night at all. So the next night, I'm back at my house and I'm in my room and my door's cracked a little bit. My closet door is cracked open as well. And we had one of these houses where the carpet was really thick. So anytime you would open a door, you would see the imprint. It was very hard for the door to close or to open. And I was laying in bed probably, 15, 20 minutes. I can't even remember how long. And the door slammed shut. And I had siblings, so I was thinking, okay, maybe somebody's playing a joke on me. So I go and open the closet door. Nobody's in there. And it kind of worried me a little bit, but not too much. I go back to my bed, and of course I leave the closet door open because any sane person would do that. I don't know what I was thinking. And not even a few minutes later, the door slams again. This time I jump up, go to my parents' room across the hall and say, look, something's going on. My door just slammed shut. I am freaked out. I told them that I messed with the Ouija board. Of course, they prayed over me and all this stuff, but they're like, Shane, this is just your overactive imagination. You probably had a dream. Go back to bed. So I go back to bed and for whatever reason, leave the closet door open again because I was kind of afraid to have it closed and there'd be something in there that I didn't know about. So I go to bed the third time and the door slams again. This time, my mom and my dad run into my room and my mom is pleading the blood of Jesus over me, casting anything that I brought home out, whatever the case. And I ended up sleeping in their room that night. And I was, like I said, 11 or 12 years old. Was the Ouija board the cause of this? I don't think so. I think it was the intent behind what we were doing. But who knows? Have you ever had an experience with the Ouija board? Let me know. I want to hear your stories too.
Come here, Loiis. As you can see, none of my dogs like coming in my room. Come here. None of my dogs will come in my room. They'll stay on the outside. Not one of them will come in. I'll try and get them to come in. See, gone. They refuse to come in my room. Speaking of dogs, I'm going to tell you a scary story that happened in my house because I know you motherfuckers love when I tell you these scary stories. And it has to do with this. I mean, what else would it have to do with, right? So, with the original board, not this board, the one that I burned, right? Me and my boys, we had a seance. When I was in high school, like a bunch of fucking assholes. We got candles, right? We lit up all the candles around the board. We did it in the living room, turned off every fucking light in the house. And we did the dumbest thing that you could ever do when playing a Ouija board. Can you take a guess? We asked it to show us a sign, right? Hey, Ouija board, can you show us a sign or whatever spirits we're talking to? Can you show us a sign? Nothing happened. And we're like, this shit's bullshit. Nothing's going on, my friends were saying. We blew out the candles. Now, mind you, at that time, I had 2 giant English Mastiffs, like in the Sandlot. Big motherfucking dogs, like 200 pounds each. And usually, like, they're hovering around us. They want to be pet. They're sitting by us. They're nowhere to be found. And we're like, yo, where's Freckles and Samson? That was their names. So we're like, well, I don't know, what the fuck? So we're literally searching the entire house. Can't fucking find them. Nowhere to be found. It was like a fucking huge thunderstorm that night too. Monsoon, raining like a motherfucker outside. And we're looking for these two dogs. Can't find them anywhere. Nowhere to be fucking found. Every room that we looked in, we did this. Freckle, Samson, you in here? No, they're not here. Shut the door. So by the time we were done, like 25, 30 minutes later, every fucking door in the house was shut. Because we looked in that room. So we were like, fuck, these dogs had to have gone out somehow. My mom and my dad are in the car, driving around, fucking pouring rain, looking for these dogs. I'm bugging the fuck out. We call animal control and we say, listen, we have two giant dogs. We can't find them. They're gone. We come back in the house. We hear crying. They're both in the fucking tub of a bathroom. We shut the door. In the tub that's like you have to shut. It's impossible.
Story time as to why you should never play with a Ouija board. So Nate has an identical twin brother named Caden. Caden has a stutter. This fact will be very important later in the story. Nate and Caden grew up in a very strict Christian household. They were never allowed to watch any scary movies. The only content they could ever watch was Christian based. About 2 to 3 years ago, they started to rebel and started to get really into the paranormal. They would watch scary movies every night and would go ghost hunting, you name it, they were into it. Everything was going okay until they started looking up the Ouija board and started making plans to purchase one. Being that their parents were, of course, would never be okay with it, they decided to buy one off of Amazon and get it shipped to one of their friends' houses. The day it arrived, they happened to be home alone, so they decided to play it that night in Nate's bedroom, right on top of his bed. Him and his brother started off by asking the board a bunch of dumb questions, like, who are you? What's your name? They even asked the board which one of them was more handsome, and I mean, they're identical twins. Then Nate asked the board how he was going to die. This is something that you shouldn't ever ask the Ouija board. Well, the board spells out A-L-O-N-E. Nate was confused by this answer, so he looked up to look at his brother, and when he did, his brother was sitting there, but it wasn't his brother anymore. Like, it was him, but it didn't really look like him anymore. His brother was just sitting there with like a blank stare in his eyes. Nate started to yell at his name, but his brother just sat there, like, completely motionless. Then his brother begins to talk, but it wasn't like anything that made any sense. It was like a bunch of gibberish, but just really fast, really angry, and just spitting out all of this stuff. Mind you, Caden stutters, but in this sense, he wasn't stuttering at all. He was speaking extremely fast. Whatever language his brother was speaking was so fluent that it really scared Nate. He 100% believes that something possessed his brother because that was not his brother at all. Nate could not believe what was happening, and he just kind of stood there frozen, just too afraid to even move. Then just how it started, his brother snapped out of it and looked at him and said, "Are you okay?" Nate's of course in shock and tells him, "What are you saying? Like, are you okay?" Caden of course has no recollection of what just happened. All he remembers is them sitting down to play with the board, and then now they're there. They ended up setting the board on fire after that took place, which is another no-no. Since that happened, Nate has continuously had nightmares every night. His brother was seemingly unaffected by the whole thing. Nate believes that since the board was played in his room on top of his bed, it affected him the most. So again, if you're having any thoughts or any ideas on playing with a Ouija board, don't.
Okay, so I lived in Salem, Massachusetts for a little bit under a year. And I'm a spooky girl, okay? My mom is a spooky girl. My mom gave me my first deck of tarot cards when I was in the 7th grade, and she also gave me her original Parker Brothers Ouija board. I'll get there. If you can handle long-form content, I'll get there. So, like, I can pick up on the vibes of places, like, very easily. Like, when I was touring apartments in Salem, like, I know the whole thing with the town is, like, completely commercializing, like, an absolute atrocity that happened. But, like, that shit's no fucking joke. So, like, one of the apartments we toured was actually in Gallows Hill, which is right off 95, like, next to the cemetery. And I walked in, and the vibes were sinister. And I asked the realtor, I was like, "Do you think this apartment's haunted?" Knowing full fucking well it was. And he was like, "Would you want it if it was?" And I was like, "No. Maybe. but I did not end up going with that apartment. I went with a different one, and I knew that there were presences, plural, because this building was built in 1875 and is super old. So before we even move a single thing, not a suitcase, not a piece of furniture, we unlock the door and open it, and there's like a glass orb on the ground, and we were both like, what is that? My partner goes to pick it up, and I'm like, can I see it? And they were like, no, it's mine, which is very out of character for them. And they were like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what that was, here you go. And I look at the orb, and there's a tiny L scratched into the orb, and I was like, oh, you're so right, L for Liam, this is yours. And let me say, I am ignorant enough to bring a Ouija board into a haunted apartment. But I am not ignorant enough to say that that fucking orb leaves the apartment, because that shit stays right here. And so from that point on, I was like, okay, they like Liam, but it's still sort of a toss-up on me. And when I brought the Ouija board in, I didn't notice it at first, but it just felt so crowded in the room that it was in, and it just felt more and more crowded the closer you would get to the Ouija board. Like, I didn't use it, but they knew it was there. And then I go to rehab, as one does, and I come back, and I'm like, get this fucking shit out of my apartment. Somewhere in between that span of time, and after I got it out, I think it was just too late for me. I got into 2 car accidents within the span of less than 60 days, and I was not at fault for either of them. So I gave them to a friend, put it in safe hands, and she got into 2 car accidents. But after the Ouija board was gone, like, it was sort of quieting down, but it was like the typical haunted house, like, stuff. Like, we'd be sitting in our bedroom and we'd hear, like, chairs scooching around in the kitchen, or, like, stuff moving around, like, coming back into a room being like, I didn't put that there. And there were also, like, weird bumps and noises coming from the walls and from the ceiling. But whenever you take out your phone to try and record it, of course it stopped. And I know for a fact that this was happening to the tenant below me, because they contacted my landlady and they were like, hey, there are weird noises coming from upstairs and from, like, in the walls. My landlady texted me and she's like, do you have, like, any appliances running or something? And I was like, no, I have a noise machine. So a maintenance guy comes into and finds nothing, of course. And then, like, closer to me moving out of the apartment, I had a really horrible nightmare. I have night terrors, okay? I have them less now that I'm not living in that apartment / working retail, but I've had some fucking horrifying nightmares. But in this dream, the tenant who lives above me was like, oh, it's a good thing you weren't home last night, because Eleanor was really trying to get in. And I was like, who the fuck is that? And then I just have this vision of this woman who's either, I don't know if it's a night dress or a hospital gown, like, banging on the door, being like, let me in, let me in. That shit. I woke up, cold fucking sweat, and I knew, I was like, this has something to do with the property, and I don't know what, and I was too much of a weenie to ask my upstairs neighbor about it, but I did some independent snooping. And so apparently that house was built by Nicholas Noyes, Noyes, who, upon further inspection, was the colonial minister that oversaw the Salem witch trials. He owns property in Salem and also Danvers, because Danvers was old Salem. And so I was like, can't be good. Who the fuck is Eleanor, though? Look down the family tree. She died in 2010. Yeah. On a separate note, I would like to thank the witch who gave me some crystal advice, and now I can't go anywhere without this. There's really so much to this. I forgot to add that whenever I would shower, my showers, even if they started hot, they would always end cold, or they wouldn't get hot at all. And my partner was like, I don't have that problem, and they've showered right after me. And it hasn't been a problem. And if I showered with them in the room, it wasn't a problem. It's just so bizarre. just don't fuck around with Ouija boards. Just don't. And Caitlin, if you're seeing this, I will text you my address, so you can mail that to me, because I'll be damned if I'm taking that shit on a plane. I feel like I have to be buried with it or something. Like, I can't get rid of it. So, just keep that shit wrapped in white cloth, I guess.
I can literally tell you the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. And I made it when I was in the 3rd grade. In this life, there's no do-overs, there's no take-backs. But if I had a time machine and I was only allowed to go to one place, I'd go there. I would warn sweet, little loving and trusting Colette, don't do it. Don't you do it. Put that Ouija board away. The biggest mistake, the biggest hands down, was playing with the Ouija board when I was young. In fact, I didn't just play with it, I became obsessed with it. And a very particular spirit whose name was Steve. Steve supposedly died in a car accident in the 50s, and I always knew it was him because he would make a figure 8. He was sad and he was lonely, and he was my friend. I loved Steve so much, I actually used to make my mom put a place for him at the dinner table. And when I'd get home from school, I would be so anxious to talk to him again with that board. I had no idea what I was doing or who I was talking to. It wasn't Steve. And I opened a door to a world, a very dark place, into demons, a door that I didn't know how to close. A door little Colette didn't even know she had opened it all. I had it all. I was genuinely the most beautiful, kind, compassionate, loving child. I still am. I'm just a bigger version of her today. My childhood was perfect. We didn't have much, but we never knew that. My parents made sure that we were so loved, we thought we had it all. I literally think back so often. I often think back, I think about it a lot. What would my life have been had I never gotten a hold of that board? After playing with that Ouija board, my mom got a little upset. She noticed I was becoming obsessed, and she insisted that it get thrown away. Reluctant and angry, I threw a fit, but I went to bed, as my dad threw it out in the alley in the garbage can. The next morning, I was awoken by my mom, and she was angry. She's the sweetest little lady, but when she's mad, she's mad. I couldn't even figure out why she was angry, and I was trying to still wake up. When I understood, she was insisting that I actually defied her and went out in the garbage at night, big no-no, and retrieved the board and put it back in my room. I was so confused, I didn't know what she was talking about. But then I glanced up and I saw the board on my dresser. I didn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I never defied my parents, not when I was young. I think it freaked my dad out because I remember him breaking the board and driving it directly to the town dump. It never came back. It didn't have to. The demon had already been invited into my life. If I were to tell you the story of my life was not the life I was intended to have at all. Riddled with pain, suffering, horrible decisions, horrible people, horrible things happened to me the rest of my entire life. There were 28 girls recently hospitalized, all lost consciousness after playing a Ouija board in Colombia at a school. Now is not the time to be playing with Ouija board. CERN has successfully opened a portal and flooded this entire world with demonic forces and entities. And they are just hunting for victims to find. Don't you ever let me hear that you'll ever play with a Ouija board. Please, I'd give anything to take that back.
Oof, your auntie does not feel good. I have been sick since all of last night. And when I throw up, it hurts my neck. But guys, I cannot stop thinking about this, and I'm so driven to make this video. Even if I have to pause it if I have to get sick, and come right back and tell you this message. Guys, what does Auntie say? Never, ever, ever play with the Ouija board. Don't do it. Not ever, not in the history of ever. Don't you let me know you did it. Do it. Guys, it is not a game, and it is not a joke. And you are not talking to Grandma or Elvis on the other side of that board. No, you're not. In fact, you are speaking to demons. They will trick you, and by playing the Ouija board, you are actually inviting them into your world, into your life, and trust and believe any demon, multiple demons, will take you up on that invitation. And they are the type of house guest that do not want to leave. In fact, you will find it is almost impossible to get rid of them. Guys, when you play with the Ouija board, you open doors to things you will not know how to close. Trust and believe, I know this firsthand. When in 3rd grade, I became obsessed with the Ouija board and a spirit on the other end named Steve. Steve told me he died in a car accident in the 1950s and that he was sad and lonely and didn't have any friends.
Guys, I was in the 3rd grade and I've always had this great big gigantic heart, and it made me sad that Steve was lonely. So I would rush home from school any chance I got. I was on that Ouija board alone sometimes. No. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. P.S. Parker Brothers, geez, thanks. You are responsible for thousands, if not millions of children, especially in the 80s, summoning demons. Well played. Well done. Mad face. Mad Parker Brothers face. I remember when me and my friend had lemonade stands and sold things so that we could save up to get a Ouija board. They were right next to games like Monopoly and Life. It is not a game. It is not a toy. And dang it, it is hands down not something children should ever have access to. Steve became such a dear friend of mine that I would actually insist that my mom would set a plate for him at the dinner table. Oh, sweet baby Lord Jesus. Yeah, I can't even picture or imagine the demon that I invited to sit at my family's table multiple times. Guys, the second you start talking on that Ouija board, demons are like, game on. You have to invite a demon into your world. And once you do, and by playing a Ouija board, you just did, they will wreak a havoc in your life that is unexplainable. And just like me, I was in the 3rd grade. Demons are like cats. When they get a mouse, they don't absolutely immediately end it. No, they taunt it. They play with it. They toss it around. They torture it. That is what a demon will do. They don't take their victims immediately. Oh no. They torment them for years with things like health issues, addictions, pain, suffering, loss. They will do absolutely anything in their power to torment you. Trust and believe. And no matter how good your intentions are, wanting to talk to a passed away loved one, I get it. It will not be your loved one on the other side. They will pretend to be. They will mimic them, and they know things. They will tell you things that you think only your passed away loved one will know, but they know them. So please promise your auntie you will never, ever play with the Ouija board. Especially now. CERN has opened a portal to another dimension that is flooded with demonic entities. Flooded. An evil place full of nothing but bad. And they open the door wide open, and all of those demonic entities have very happily flooded our earth, increasing the number of demonic entities on our earth to an unimaginable, uncountable amount. We all know that we are in the end of days, and whoever is at CERN opened that door and hands down has helped the devil increase his army. So by far, this is the worst time ever to mess with anything like this. Ouija boards, seances, don't do it. Demonic infestation is a very, very real thing. Demonic possession is also a very real thing. And a Ouija board is the quickest way to find out. Promise me you will not mess with these things. I love you. I love you so very much.
Okay, this takes place when I was working at my assisted living memory care. And let me tell you, that place is so haunted. I have so many stories. The main story that gets people every time is when I tell this one. And I literally, let's just say I went home crying at the end of the night. So it was me, 3 other girls. I'm going to leave out their name. Pretty much, we were working late, okay? So we decided, us being dumb, we decided, hey, let's make a Ouija board and go play it in the room that was not getting taken by a resident. So we're like, yeah, let's do that. So pretty much we make it, we go into my room or the room, and I have flashlights that we use to communicate with ghosts, right? Turn on flashlight if you're here, turn off, whatever, you get the point. Pretty much, we put down the Ouija board on, there was like a table in there. We put the flashlight on the dresser. So keep in mind, Ouija board's on a different table, flashlight is on a dresser, okay? Pretty much, we open up the board, and we ask if anyone's there. It goes to yes. Everyone's freaking out, okay? Everyone's thinking it's getting moved, whatever, okay? But pretty much, we asked who's here with us. And I'm not going to say the name of the resident who lived there previously, but it spelt out that name, and that was the one who died prior. Right at that point, the flashlight on the dresser flies off and hits the wall. Flies off. Everyone is freaking out, okay? At this point, I'm like, we need to shut this down. Everybody runs out of the room, okay? So I grab one of the girls and I'm like, you gotta help me close this out. Like, this is dangerous if we leave it open. So she comes back, we close it out, it's fine. I pick up my flashlight, practically broken at this point, my flashlight is. We end up leaving, lock the door, we're done, okay? I end up leaving at this point. I don't know exactly, but my shift was over. So I think it was the 3 girls that stayed for the overnight. Keep in mind, I was meaning to throw this Ouija board out into the dumpster, but I was so scared I ran to my car and I threw that in the back. Pretty much on my way home, I'm just like, I'm very scared, okay? I get pulled over, okay? And here's the funny part. I get pulled over, the cop comes, takes his flashlight, looks in my car, and he looks to the back and he said, that thing has you cursed. Okay, and here's where it gets freakier. Right at that same time, I get a call from one of the girls. And on the call, she showed me videos. I don't have the videos, I didn't save them. But she showed me videos. They've heard like a big bang coming from that room. And apparently, like, the room was, like, messy. Like, there was, like, paper crumbs everywhere. There was, I don't know if the table fell or, like, the bed sheets, something happened. But pretty much the room was not how we left it, okay? So they start freaking out. Like, what the heck is going on? I'm freaking out. I have the Ouija board in my back car, or, like, my back seat. The cop's standing right there. I'm on the phone with this girl. Like, what the hell is going on? So, anyways, I get home, I leave that Ouija board in the garage, and there's another story where me and my cousins played it, and shit went down, let's just say. So my brother did do something with the board, but pretty much here, do not make your own Ouija board, yet play with one. They are dangerous, and that is not something to mess with.
Here's what not to do if you find pieces in a Ouija board in your house. This guy found chopped up pieces of an Ouija board in his door frame in his house. Check it out. Clearly it was done because the previous house owner probably summoned something bad and did this to then ward off the spirit. But wait until you see what they did. They then tried to put it together. No. That is how you get cursed, you know? You're just re-putting the portal together for the demon to come and haunt you.
This is the experience I had, my first and last experience with a Ouija board. This was enough for me to decide, not for me. So I was living in an apartment with my boyfriend at the time, 2 other roommates. One of the roommates got a hold of a Ouija board, and the 4 of us decided we were going to sit around and play with the Ouija board at night to make it even more spooky. We turned off all the lights in the apartment. The apartment was dead silent other than us speaking with the Ouija board. And first of all, the fact that the Ouija board actually worked was enough for me to be like, whoa, that's crazy evidence. So in the corner of the living room, we had a black lamp, and it was like a metal lamp. And as we're asking questions, we hear a sound really loud enough for all 4 of us simultaneously to get up and rush out onto the balcony of the apartment because we were so scared. The lamp wasn't anywhere near us. The 4 of us were at the table. None of us could have made that noise. And there was nothing else around the lamp for like something to fall and hit it. The lamp was stationary on its own by itself. So the 4 of us were standing out on that balcony for what felt like 15 minutes, too afraid to go inside. We ended up packing up the Ouija board, putting it away. The roommates were done with it. But shortly after, I personally saw a shadow figure twice standing outside of the roommate's room in the hallway. Very tall, big shadow figure. Looked like it was wearing one of those hats. I'm going to put a picture of the type of hat that it looked like it was wearing, but it was just darker than black. Now, this was back when I still considered myself Christian. So as soon as I saw this type of stuff, I would pray and I would rebuke. And eventually it would just dissipate. I would go on with my life. Well, one morning I woke up and one of the roommates was sleeping on the floor in our room next to our bed with me and my boyfriend. He then asks if it's okay if he gets too spooked in his room, if he could come into our room. And he starts to explain how he's been having nightmares of things pulling at him and trying to get him. And then he shows me this bruise on his foot that looks like someone was pulling at him. And he felt more secure and safer in our room. So I said, that's totally fine. Stay as long as you want. We moved out shortly after. And when we moved out, the place that we stayed in, all the activity stopped. Until we moved into a condo, then activity picked up in that condo. I have a few stories about that condo. I don't know if the two are related though. I don't think they are. I always don't think I have that many stories, and then when I stop to think about how many stories I do have, I could make quite a few videos.
Ouija board right there, that's exactly where it deserves to be. In the fire.
This is why you don't listen to stupid TikToks. For one, are Ouija boards dangerous? Yes and no. They can be if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But the number one thing you do not do is burn it. And I'm about to explain why. Also, I'm going to explain the proper ways of getting rid of it. A Ouija board or spirit board is basically like a two-way door. Using the proper steps, nothing can come as long as you don't let it come out. Also, one of the reasons they always tell you to say goodbye. You're closing that door. If you burn the board, on the other hand, you're basically burning that door down, which means anything can come through. Now, if you do need to get rid of one, get a black coal, salt, iron, bury it away from your property, or throw it away. Do not, under any circumstances, fucking burn it. That is how you get haunted. That is how you get nasty spirits attached to you and or attached to your land. How do I know? Because I learned the hard way of not burning it. Again, let's remember, burning a spirit board, you're burning the door that keeps them away from you. Bury it. Don't burn it. Be smart.
This isn't like the stuff that I normally post, but I really want to do this trend. I actually have a lot of ghost stories from my life, but this particular one is also about the Ouija board, like the original poster. So I was 17 years old and I had my first like long-term boyfriend. And we were both really curious about the Ouija board. We had been told stories growing up, but we wanted to find out for ourselves. And so one night, I had purchased a Ouija board from Toys R Us, which is crazy to think about, that you can just buy this portal at a kid's store. That no longer exists. Anyway, I'm going to go on tangents because that's how I am, but I'm going to try not to. I buy this Ouija board and he comes over to my house. I'm 17 years old. There are rules for the house. He was allowed to be in my room, but the door had to remain open at all times. And he usually had to leave by like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. Also, I was told throughout my life a couple of times that I was not allowed to play the Ouija board in my dad's house. So now that you know that, let's continue. My dad worked graveyard shift at the time. So he went to work and I was a good kid and I was trusted to just do what I was supposed to do. But this night I didn't. We were gonna find out if this Ouija board really worked. So everyone went to bed. It was definitely after 10 o'clock at night and my dad's at work and we go down in my room, and my room was in the basement. And the way that you would get to my room is you would go down the stairs and it would lead you into this big living room. And back in the left corner of the living room was the door to my bedroom. And the only light switch for the living room was right after you came down the stairs and you first entered. So I would have to turn off the lights and run through a dark living room every night when I went to my room. And when I got up in the morning, I'd have to turn off the lights in my bedroom and walk through a dark living room up the dark stairs. Just keep that in mind. So we're down in my room in the basement and we're setting up the Ouija board, and we set it up on my bed and we're sitting cross-legged and we light candles and we turn off all the lights. I don't remember reading the instructions because apparently it was really important to say goodbye. I'll get to that. So we set it all up. We're sitting cross-legged. We both put like 2 fingers on the planchette, like really, really, really lightly. We decide we're going to focus and meditate on the question, will anybody talk to us? So we do. And it takes a long time. Our hands would get tired. We'd have to like shake them out, but we just stayed like in this mental state that we were in, and we would chant it out loud or just internally, will anybody talk to us? After about 30 minutes, the planchette started to vibrate under our fingers. And I started to feel at that time a weird energy starting to flow through my body. And the planchette slowly started to make its way over to the word yes. And the stronger that the planchette moved, or the faster it moved, the stronger I felt this strange, uncomfortable energy within my body. So we both look at each other like, oh my gosh, holy shit, this is real. And then we decide we're going to ask if it's a spirit who's talking to us. So we do. And the planchette moves a little faster this time, and it leaves the word yes and circles right back around to it. At this point, this energy in my body is just flinging from head to toe through me, and it almost feels the way I would imagine the static on an old television set when you go to a channel that doesn't exist. That's kind of what it felt like this horrible static just flinging through my body. Never felt it before or since. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure about this. And we decide to ask, are you nice? Because of course I need to know, right? And obviously it shoots over even faster this time to the word no. And this is where I decide I'm done. So I'm like, that's it. And I go to grab the board, and the board will not move. It feels like someone's standing on the board because I'm yanking on it and it's not moving. And I still to this day, when I think about it, my logical mind is like, did that happen? But yes, it happened. And finally, on like my fifth yank, I threw my whole body into it. And it suddenly felt like something had stepped off of the board because the board just flew up into the air. I slammed it down into the box. My boyfriend was just pale as a ghost, and he's looking at me wide-eyed, and he's like, I need to go home. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't leave me here. I'm so scared. And he's like, no, I really gotta go. And I'm like, oh crap. So I take him upstairs, walk him out of the house, lock the doors behind him, go back down into my room. But this is where it gets really messed up. My room does not feel like my room. And I know that sounds crazy because obviously it was my room. It was all my stuff and everything. But I felt like I had stepped into a parallel universe, and I was so far away from all that I knew that was comfortable and good, and like I just felt so far away from everything, even though my family was right upstairs sleeping. In some ways, I've never been so scared in my life. And I just felt so detached and so far away from the rest of the house. And my room didn't feel like my room. And I didn't sleep that night. I'm not religious, but I grabbed the Bible because I didn't know what else to do. And I just laid there with the lights on. I guess I drifted in and out of sleep somehow, but I slept with the lights on in my room for like a week. It took a couple weeks for my room to start to feel like I could be in it comfortably, and I could actually spend substantial amount of time in it, which sucked because my room before that was like my sanctuary, and I really just messed it all up. I did not tell my parents because I didn't want to get in trouble, but stuff started to happen. So that night when I was done with the Ouija board, I had set it outside of my bedroom door on top of this bookshelf. And in the morning when I would get up for school, I would open my door into the dark living room, and I would see the silhouette of a black cat run from the light into the dark really fast. And I would like blink and shake it off and think that it was just, my mind playing tricks on me. And I would tell myself I just hyped it all up in my head, and I made myself all freaked out because I was trying to rationalize what I had done to the house. I didn't want to accept that I really haunted it, or that I really changed things, or I invited something in. But clearly I did, because about a month after me seeing like the black cat, I'm upstairs at the dinner table, and my young sibling, my sister, she was like 7 or 8 at the time, out of nowhere, she goes, I keep seeing a black cat in the basement. And I'm like, oh my God, it's real. I really did this. And the basement continues to feel weird and messed up. And then another month passes. And then my dad says to me, I'm really upset because our basement feels really funky. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, when I bought this house, one of the reasons I picked it was because the energy was really nice. And he was like, there was no negative vibes in the house. And now for some reason, when I go into the basement, it feels so messed up. Like it is so bad. And he's like, and I don't know why. And pretty sure I started to cry, and I told him, and I was like, oh my God, I have to tell you something. Me and my boyfriend played the Ouija board in my room, and it's haunted now, and nothing feels right. And he's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no. And he's like, why didn't you ask for help earlier? And I'm like, because I was scared of you. And he's like, I'm so scary. I'm scarier than like an evil spirit in your room. And I'm like, yes. So my stepmom threw the Ouija board away, and stuff kind of started to calm down after that. But to be honest, even though the house feels a lot better and the basement isn't nearly as scary as it was, it's never fully gone all the way back to the way it was before I played the Ouija board. And occasionally weird things do happen in that house, not negative feeling so much like around that time. But yeah, I don't recommend Ouija boards. And if you do play, always make sure you say goodbye.
Okay, what's the next question?
Are you a male?
No. Are you female?
What does that mean?
No idea. No gendered. What's your name? R A B is what I did earlier.
Yeah.
I is it?
Rabbi? Rabbit.
Yeah.
Rabbis. Rabbisu.
Yeah, that was earlier.
Any more? No.
Are you here to hurt us?
Well, he had to start moving before.
Yeah.
Dad, please can we just close
I don't
it?
want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
We've
it's
done it
fine.
for too long.
I know, my arm's aching. Come on.
Come on, just close it.
We'll close it.
Dad, please.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
want to do
okay,
this
it's
anymore.
okay.
Pick it up.
Hold up, it's got it
Yeah,
wrong.
but you need to close it properly. Please,
Look,
Dad.
I just want to show him there's nothing on.
Dad, Dad. Kelly,
It's
open the door too.
It's
Kelly,
okay.
open the door, please.
Calm down.
Dad,
Hold
can you
on.
open the
It's
door,
fine.
please?
It's
Open
fine.
it.
It's fine. Turn the light on. But it's already on. What the
So I couldn't stitch this video originally, and I just went through an incredible amount of technical difficulties trying to get software and everything to work, which is really kind of strange here. But I wanted to share a story of mine. I have a whole bunch of stories, and it's not often that I talk about paranormal stuff here on my channel. I talk about it plenty on my podcast. But anyway, I grew up in a rural town in Vermont in a house that wasn't really all that old. It was built in the early 1970s, but there was some paranormal activity that happened there when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. And yeah, it was just, there was always this kind of creepy feeling that if you were alone in the house, that something was following you or watching you. There was a point in time where one of my sisters bought a Ouija board, and she was messing around with it in the downstairs of the house I grew up in with my brother, and they were communicating with an entity on the other side, which they believed was my grandfather. I never met him. He passed away shortly after I was born. And so they were communicating with this entity. I don't know for sure if it was my grandfather or not, but later that evening during dinner, the house started getting all these phone calls, and we assumed they were prank calls or something. My sister got up to answer the phone and there was no one on the other line. And then my brother and my other sister answered the phone and there was nobody there. And I decided to hop up, a 6 or 7-year-old me, and I went to go answer the phone. And when I picked it up, I was like, hello. And there was this, I guess I could only really describe it as like this ghostly voice on the other end. And it was asking for the name of somebody who didn't live in the house. There was nobody in my immediate family or my extended family or anyone I knew for that matter at that point in time by that name. And it was just really unsettling and creepy. It sounded super distant and just like this weak voice that was trying to, I guess, I don't know, pierce the veil or something. And so I was like, yeah, no, this is creepy. So I just hung up the phone. And that was kind of one of the first major things that I experienced in that house that was definitely really weird. My dad had a much crazier set of stories, and there was a few other events. Like there was at one point in time later, I think this was when I was probably a teenager, that there was in the living room, there was a fireplace that didn't really use all that often, but it had a mantle over it. And there were all sorts of family pictures and different decorations and knickknacks and that kind of thing. And one morning I remember getting up and I was getting ready for school, and there was a portrait above the mantle, probably like a 36 by 24 painting in a frame. And it had somehow made its way off of the 45-degree nail that it hung from on the wall, landed on the floor face down without the glass in the frame breaking, without knocking any of the other picture frames or different items on the mantle down. And it was just kind of gently placed down. And it was up there the night before, and everyone had already gone to bed. So that was something I couldn't really explain all that well for that instance. But I've got a whole bunch of other stories from this house, like for instance, my dad and some other things that have happened in other places as well. So if you want to hear those, let me know. A little bit different from the cryptid content I've been talking about recently, but just I had to chime in on this one. So yeah, let me know what you guys think.
I have another Ouija board story time. I highly suggest you put your AirPods on or headphones, whatever you have. I have no business filming this in my house, but the car was way too hot and I just couldn't bear it. This story was submitted by Maria. I went ahead and tagged her down below. So when Maria was about 12 years old, her and her sister used to play with a homemade Ouija board. Her main purpose of doing this was for her to connect with her grandfather who had passed away. Maria never got to meet him, so she thought what better way to get to know him than contacting him through a Ouija board. As time went on, the Ouija board became an obsession for Maria and her sister. For whatever reason, they could not stop playing with it. They just always felt the need to constantly be on the board. They soon realized that the person they had contacted was not her grandfather, that it was in fact a D word. They actually found out the name of this D word, which I'll put right here. Don't ever say this word out loud. Trust me. He is known as one of the most controlling D words in Ouija board history. But back to the story. One night, Maria and her sister were playing with the board and they had a picture of her grandfather, right next to them. But out of nowhere, Maria felt a hand on her back. She quickly got excited and said, "We did it. We finally contacted Grandpa," not realizing that it was actually putting his hand on her back. Later that night, after Maria went to bed, she got woken up by this D word jumping on top of her and trying to choke her. She woke up sweating and crying. She went and woke her sister up, and her sister did her best to try to calm her down. The very next day, Maria went to her grandmother's house and took the homemade Ouija board with her. As soon as she got to her grandmother's house, she dug a hole in the backyard and buried the Ouija board, hoping that that would be the end of it. But she was wrong. 1 week after she did this, her parents came home crying, telling her that the grandmother had passed away in her sleep due to a fit. Maria was stunned when she heard the news and blamed herself because had she not wanted to contact her grandfather, none of this would have happened. They ended up laying her grandmother to rest and did not perform an autopsy due to the fact that she was already of age. I mean, she was 88 years old. Regardless of this, Maria states that her grandmother was extremely healthy for her age. After the funeral, Maria tried to kind of put it in the back of her head until she went to her grandmother's room and found the Ouija board she had buried in the backyard under her grandmother's bed.
So I was doing a Ouija board at 3 a.m. I asked if ghosts were real, and it said yes.
It's literally moving on its own. There's got to be some type of explanation for this thing. I'm not buying this for a second.
I asked some more questions, and it told me to stop. I was kind of scared because it was literally moving on its own. Then I asked if it can prove ghosts were real, and all the candles blew out.
Every single candle blew out, and I'm starting to hear noises. I'm literally the only one home.
Then the doors shut and my microphone cut out. I heard something running, but nothing's there.
Everyone home. Every single door in the house keeps slamming.
I was starting to get really scared. So I went back to say goodbye to the Ouija board, but it was gone. I looked for it for 30 minutes, but couldn't find it anywhere. I kept hearing more doors slam.
I just want to end this all, bro. I have no idea what's going on.
Then I found the board in the trash, and right as I was about to say goodbye, I can't believe what I saw. A real ghost.
Oh, finally I get to tell this story. In 2000, I was going to college at University of the Arts in Center City, Philadelphia, and my best friend and I decided to get an apartment instead of the dorms. Stupid. The apartment we moved into was a converted Bible factory. It was called the Baptist Publication Society. And it was a really old building, but we liked it. We got the Ouija board one night and we started messing with it. And we legit, oh my gosh, started talking to entities. I'm like shaking as I'm making this right now. I believe that I have had something attached to me since then, which is why I'm shaking making this. It got so bad. Let me just tell you. We talked to a gambler named Domino who lived in Atlantic City. We spoke to a little boy named Caleb who said that he could see his dead sister in the rain. And when we tried to ask them questions about our lives and everything, that was hard because we weren't getting answers about our lives. We were just, they were just trying to talk to us about themselves. They were trying to get us to ask questions about them. I don't know what that means, but that's how it went. And I'm talking every time we laid our hands on this Ouija board, it moved. And we spoke to a different entity and sometimes the same entity. It got so bad that I was leaving class early just to get home and do the Ouija board and talk to these entities. It literally felt like I was addicted to the Ouija board. Okay, I ended up dropping out of college because of this, because I missed so much class. First thing that happened, my best friend and I, one night, we just started fighting so bad. For two girls that had never fought in their whole lives since knowing each other. So one night I went to go leave the apartment and the doorknob to leave fell completely off. So we couldn't get out. We had to scream down the hall through the hole for our neighbor to come let us out. Second thing that happened, it was a couple of weeks before my 19th birthday. I was in the shower and the medicine cabinet fell completely off the wall and crashed onto the sink and shattered everywhere. Then I was starting to have these nightmares where I would see people hanging by their necks from the windowsill. In this nightmare, I then ran downstairs to my roommate's room and was in the kitchen and noticed that the kitchen burners were turned on. And then as I was turning the kitchen burners off, something was tugging at my shirt. And then I turned around and I looked and there was an egg cooking on the floor in my dream. I woke up and I ran downstairs and I slept with my roommate. It wasn't soon after that that everything went crazy. Long story short, we both dropped out of college. She went home to Vermont and I moved to San Francisco. There were two people that did the Ouija board with us. They were a couple of twins, one of them that was an ex-boyfriend of mine. They're both dead, one after the other. And the friend of mine that was involved has had nothing but tragedy as well. She had a boyfriend die. Then she got pregnant by another man later on in life who died in a car accident too. And then she lost her baby. I could go into what has occurred in my life for the past 20 years some other time. But just know I'll leave you with this. The night of my 19th birthday, before it got really, really bad, I had friends over, the two friends that ended up dying 20 years later, one after the other. And I was going to sleep early. So I went upstairs, I said goodnight to my roommate and my two friends that were still there. And I went to sleep. In my dream, I'm running down the fire escape steps. I go out to the front of the building. I see my friends leaving, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I run back up the front of the steps to the building, and somebody calls my name from across the street. I see a man, puffy hair coming out of a hat, looks like a normal Philly guy. I turn around, I say, who are you? And then I heard a voice say, Jesus Christ. And at the same time, I felt a tap on the soft part of my head. And in that moment, I woke up. And for a split second, I was okay with what happened because I went to sleep thinking that there were friends still in my house. So I thought that somebody was behind me. It was my friend. But the moment I opened my eyes and I saw that it was after 3 a.m., I knew that nobody was behind me. And I looked and nobody was behind me. I looked up and nothing fell on my head. But I am so sure that I was tapped on my head in that dream. There's more to the story, but stay away from the fucking Ouija board. I can assure you there's nothing good that will come of it. Okay, it's best explained through what actually happened in the year 2021. Prior to 2021, I was just constantly met with failure, missed opportunities. It seemed that nothing was ever working out for me. However, there was nothing crazy going on that would have brought my attention to the Ouija board. When my two friends passed, it was in early 2017. And it wasn't until after that when I started speaking to my best friend from the story who I hadn't spoken to in years. Once they died, that's when I spoke to my other friend, my best friend, and heard about all of her tragedy. Now, after I heard about her tragedy, I went through like a little breakdown, not like a real breakdown where I was diagnosed, but a little breakdown where I realized that so much in my life had gone wrong, and it just felt like I was being blocked from being successful, but most of my life I was just like, oh, that's just life. I guess I'm not supposed to do that or that or that or that. Okay, so then I meet a man in 2021. And I decide, I'm going to get baptized. I was born Jewish, but I never really believed in anything specific, any specific religion. I believed in God. And since the dream that I had, I knew Jesus was real. Every day after that dream, it was no question to me that Jesus and the story of Jesus was 100% real. And Jews feel differently about Jesus. They believe it was a man, but that's it. So I meet a man, and he tells me about a baptism in Venice Beach. And I go to get baptized. I get baptized. 3 days later, I find out that I'm pregnant by the man who took me to go get baptized. I was told, because I have endometriosis and one ovary, that it would be nearly impossible for me to get pregnant naturally. I spent one night with this man the night before the baptism, and he got me pregnant. What proceeded after my baptism is nothing short of insane, okay? The man and I, whose child it was, fought every day. It seemed that there was just something, like, just every time things would be good, something terrible would happen, whether it was a car accident or my chronic pain made me go to the emergency room, or one of our family members got into an accident. So I decided that I was going to move in with my mother because I just didn't feel safe. The day I was supposed to go to move in with my mother, I was 5 months pregnant. The day I was supposed to sign the lease, her apartment went up in flames and she lost everything and was in a coma for over 2 months. By the time she got out of the coma, my dog of 12 years, the entity that I was relying on for like security, had to be put down, like out of the blue. I have my child, but I have my child with an emergency C-section because it turns out that I was in labor for a day because of the chronic pain that I have didn't allow me to recognize that my pain was actually labor and not my chronic pain. So my son, I almost lost my son. But I didn't. Praise God. The end of the story of 2021 comes when my father invited me and my little family out to live with him and his new wife, the witch, just so we can like save some money and get on our feet and figure out what we're going to do. We do that. He had been living in LA for almost 20 years. I had been living there for almost 16, and we moved our whole lives out here. A week after we moved, we were told that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, lung cancer. So we couldn't live with them because, you know, his new wife wanted him to have as little stress as possible. So we had to now hurry up and find a place to live. He died 8 weeks later, and this woman took everything from him. That was my 2021. And I believe my baptism was basically I don't even know what, but it feels as though when I got baptized, whatever was with me or whatever you want to call it was not too happy. And I thought throughout my whole pregnancy, after my dog died, I was like, I'm not meant to have this child. Something is trying to stop me from having this child. And somehow my child was born perfect.
With my followers, I would play the Ouija board live. I did this every single Friday for about 6 weeks straight. In 2019, I started using the Ouija board a lot, and something bad did happen. Some people say using this board opens a gateway to the other side. You never know what you're going to pull through. Yeah, maybe that's true. And this is the story about what happened to me. I decided that as a way to have fun and engage with my followers, I would play the Ouija board live. I did this every single Friday for about 6 weeks straight, plus some sessions in between. The strangest thing started happening. We started hearing family members in the house that weren't presently home. One day I had left the house and I was down the block and my phone rang and my wife called and she said, "Scott, where are you?" And I said, "I'm in the car." And she said, "So you're definitely not downstairs, right?" I said, "No, absolutely not." She said, "Okay, because I just heard you calling me from downstairs." And that's just one example of the several times we were mimicked in the house. Do you have a similar story? In 2019, I started using the
Part 2 to the unbelievable but completely true ghost story that was my childhood with my Ouija board experience. Before I get started, I did not sleep from watching y'all's stitches of your horror ghost stories. And I believe all of you, and I moved the mirrors away from my bed so quickly last night, and then I fell down a rabbit hole of like blue sage and cedar and juniper, and anyway, neither here nor there. So I got some new coffee. I also ordered some more. They sell it on TikTok Shop for way cheaper than where I was buying it, which, yeah, now I know about TikTok Shop because of this video. So thank you. Anyway, I went digging, y'all, to find what documentation I had, because, you know, I never shut my mouth up back then. I was, like, on Tumblr and MySpace and Facebook. I'm like, I know I wrote about this somewhere. And I looked and I found my Facebook statuses, so here they are. So basically it says that the person we were talking to on the Ouija board claimed to be an 86-year-old woman, and we asked if I was going to have a child or if I was going to get married, you know, like the MASH questions. And then we asked if there was, I think this is this one. Yeah, we asked where she was, and she said in between life and death. And then called me a bitch. And then we have this other one where we ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak to us? And it says yes, and then we say who, and it says demon, and then we said why, and it spelled out he knows God. Like, mind you, we all were lifting our hands up, like, watching it move. I completely forgot about this till I read it. And then we kept trying to ask innocent questions, like, what am I going to go to college for, bitch? Drinking this coffee to stay awake. I'm never going to sleep again. Send me your energy healing tips. But, anyway, the demon that we were speaking to lied. Told us that it was buried in a cemetery. My friend says we were talking to multiple entities. I personally think we were just talking to a demon. Also, I always stutter in the morning, so But I'll tell you a little bit more about what my friends have to say. My one friend is a mother, so she's obviously tending to her child right now and can't respond right away. And my other friend is a cop. So we're all living lives, probably trying not to think about demons. I'm just weird, I guess.
Okay, I haven't told this story in a long time for a few reasons. The first is because anytime I tell this story to a skeptic, they're always like, oh yeah, I'm sure this happened, blah blah, ghosts or... Like, I don't give a fuck if you believe in ghosts or not, bro. I really don't. It makes no difference to me. This is just what happened. The second reason is I really don't want to disrespect the family of the spirit that we ended up coming in contact with. But if you went to or currently go to Ryerson or TMU, then you're probably going to want to hear this story. I went to school there. I lived in residence for my freshman year, and this is like 8 years ago now, but I will literally always remember what happened this night. So I lived on the 4th floor, but all of the friends that I hung out with lived on the 6th floor. That's important for later. One night we all went to this house party in North York. We like all showed up together. It was like a group of 8 of us. And when we got there, the girl that was hosting the party ended up having a Ouija board upstairs and people were using it. Now, if you know me at all and you know my 2 options are to just randomly socialize with a bunch of strangers at this college party or go upstairs and use a Ouija board in a dark room, then I'm obviously gonna go upstairs and use a Ouija board in the dark room. So we go the full 9 yards. We turn the lights off, candles on, doors locked, totally dark. We're sitting in a circle around the planchette and we're ready to fucking go. Now, at this point in my life, I had used a Ouija board once before and it worked, so I volunteered to lead the charge and like do like the talking, but as long as everybody was in agreement that no one was going to be secretly moving the planchette. And the way that Ouija boards work, if this ever worked for you, you have to be open to the spirits coming to you. So if you're a non-believer or you're a skeptic or you have any sort of that energy at all, it's not going to work. And it didn't work while we were at this house. So we get back to our residence and a few of us are like, damn, we really wanted the Ouija board to work. Maybe we should try again here. Now, we didn't have an official Ouija board like this girl did at her house, but you can make a Ouija board out of anything. And there's 4 of us who want to do this, me and my 3 girlfriends. And each of us are believers. We believe in the other side. We believe in the spirits. We are open to this entire endeavor. So we're like, okay, whatever, let's just make a Ouija board. Like I said, they all lived on the 6th floor. We went to the common room on the 6th floor. We ended up having to use one of their roommates' cutting boards. Hannah, sweetie, I'm so sorry. We actually like wrote letters in Sharpie on her cutting board and we ended up having to cut it up and burn it because we ended up each getting haunted, but that's later down the line. I actually don't even know if we ended up getting her another cutting board. So Hannah, I'm so sorry. So we get to the common room. It's the 4 of us. 3 of us sit around the table. My best friend Abby is just like spectating. She's actually on my shirt right now. And she's like, I'm going to watch. I'm not going to participate because I don't want to be haunted. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I'm actually going to go and try to commune with the spirits myself. So the 3 of us make like the most solemn vow. We're like, okay, if we're going to do this, none of us are going to be secretly pushing the planchette like that won't fly here. About 20 minutes in, when we're about to give up, the planchette moves from the middle of the board down to the word high. And the 3 of us look at each other, we're stunned because you can tell when the planchette moves. I think we were using a shot glass or something, but like you can tell when that instrument is moving. It's almost like it's moving from the bottom of the object. Like the board itself is like pulling it. Like you could feel if one of the other people around you was moving it. Like you can tell where the force is coming from. The force was coming from below the shot glass, like the rim of the shot glass, because it was upside down and it was like pulling it and our fingers were just on top of it. So we look at ourselves and we're like, holy fuck, it's working. And obviously we want to know if we're talking to, you know, like some good spirit or the devil himself. So immediately we're like, okay, are you a good spirit or a bad spirit? And it spells out G-O-O-D. So we were like, oh. Next question I asked the spirit, did you die here? Just because I'm a nosy bitch. Planchette moves to the word yes. So now we're stunned. We're gagged. We're like, wait, someone died here? Before we can ask it any more questions, and this is a memory that I will literally never forget. This is something that still haunts me to this day. The planchette or the shot glass we were using starts moving slowly like across the board from like one corner to the other corner, and then it starts going so fast, and I swear to God, the 3 of us were just in a full-on trance. And my best friend Abby can tell you, because she was watching us from like the outside, from the couch. She was literally looking at us like we were hypnotized. It starts moving back and forth so fast, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then it stops, does a big circle around the board, and goes back to the word high. I swear to God, the pang of dread that filled my body in that moment, I was like, holy shit, we're talking to a demon. The 3 of us look at each other and we're just like, oh my God, we can't take our fingers off of it because now we know that we've summoned something bad, A, and if we just take our fingers off of it, we're each gonna be haunted. So like we try to say goodbye to it. But like I said, I'm a nosy bitch, so I want to find out like who we're talking to. Am I talking to Satan? Let's figure it out. So the first question I ask, is this the same spirit we were just talking to? The shot glass goes down to the word no. By now it's 3 in the morning, which is not the time to be using a Ouija board, by the way. So now we're all pretty scared, and I asked the board, did you hurt the spirit we were just talking to? And the planchette goes down to yes. And so obviously my next question is, are you a bad spirit or a good spirit? And the planchette goes down to bad. And then I ask, do you want to hurt us? And it goes to yes. Immediately the 3 of us look at each other and we're like, goodbye. And we bring the planchette down to goodbye. Because that's how you're supposed to close the tether between you and the spirit when you open it up with the Ouija board. Somehow we managed to go to sleep that night. We're telling our friends the next day all about this, about what happened, whatever, and the week goes on. Nobody really believes us. Everyone thinks that like one of us was secretly moving the planchette the whole time. Now remember, these girls lived in the same room on the 6th floor. I lived on the 4th floor, but there was an American in their room and the rest of us were Canadian. So they had one American flag and one Canadian flag hanging in their room. And they told me for that entire week, every single day at around 5:15-ish, the flags would fall. And they knew this was happening because the sound of it would wake them up. It could be a coincidence that the flags are falling, obviously, because they're not hung up properly or they're like, whatever's hanging them up is too weak. But every day for a full week at like 5 in the morning, that's just like not coincidental. I'm also starting to feel like weird presences. When I'm trying to go to sleep, I had like this dark hallway in my room that led to my front door. Like I lived in a single. And so you had to walk a little bit before you got into like my actual room. And there was no light there, obviously. So whenever I was going to sleep, it literally looked like, I don't even know. It just felt like someone was standing in the darkness watching me sleep. And I think to myself, wow, the good spirit said that they died here. So like, let me look up to see if anybody's actually died in this residence. Again, I'm going to keep names out of this out of respect for the family, but you can easily look it up. So we find out not only did a student die in this residence, they died on the 6th floor in the room that these girls were living in. And to make matters even scarier or freakier, the manner of death after autopsy was inconclusive. Like this student had diabetes, so they were like, okay, we're just gonna say that it was like causes by diabetes, but there was actually no like conclusive evidence to show that it was that did this person in. And their time of death was between 5 and 6 a.m. So you can say what you want about Ouija boards, about whatever else about this story. I personally don't care. That's exactly what happened to us, and any of my friends that were there can corroborate it. But if you currently live in residence in Pittman Hall on the 6th floor in that corner unit and weird things are happening, I'm so sorry. That is totally our fault. And Hannah, sweetie, if you see this, let me know where you're at. Let me know your address so I can send you a new cutting board. Sorry.
So I had a Ouija board in college and did some really bad things. Didn't say goodbye properly, played in a cemetery, slept with it underneath my bed. It ended up needing my house to get a priest. Here's the story.
Sometimes my plants would move like that and nothing was on, no AC, no window, nothing. Goosebumps. Things would move around my room.
Videos you saw were because the board was in my room underneath my bed. This led to really bad nightmares, to my room smelling like rotten meat, to doors being slammed, to plants flying everywhere. It was just really bad. It got to the point where I needed an exorcist to the house and I needed to provide proof for the Vatican. The Vatican. Yeah, that was a good time. Ended up having a brain injury throughout all of that happening. You could check out my channel for that. And then ended up having to be back at my house and hauntings were still occurring. And then I found out I was pregnant and I got my house blessed beforehand. But yeah, it was not good at all. My friends would come in and not even knowing that there was a Ouija board underneath my bed, they would come in and be like, I don't feel a good vibe in here. Like some of them would even like be sitting on my bed and they'd see the door slam shut. Or like, I remember one time I had a girlfriend over and my crucifix in my room just fell to the floor. Just like crazy things like that. Got to the point where my girlfriend got possessed when we were playing. Now, we didn't know at the time how bad it was and how dangerous it was. We were younger. Now I'm a mom, so I would never do that. And I would never let my kid do that. But I didn't know any better. And so we were playing, and this was like one of those times where we were playing for hours. And one of the girls like suffered from, like depression and was definitely the most, unfortunately, like the most vulnerable. And that's when demons like to attack her, the most vulnerable one of the group. And started spelling out her name on the board and started spelling out her neck. Whose neck? We were asking whose neck, and they'd spell out her name. And they kept saying for us to look in the mirror. So they would like type mirror, 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 mirror. And it was like really creepy. And then it got to the point where she like could not breathe. And she was literally like couldn't breathe. And the craziest thing about this was that I knew something was wrong is I loved those two girls that I was with very much. They were like sisters to me. And when I saw this happening, instead of being like, oh my God, are you okay? The craziest thing happened. Instead, I wanted to slap her. I had anger. I was like, shut up, stop. And I remember saying that and not wanting to say it, but it just coming out of me. It was very weird. But like, I wasn't the one that was like really affected, but she, on the other hand, started really choking and then like got out of it, whatever. And because she was choking or anything, we didn't say goodbye. We stopped. I like moved the board out of the way. I'm like, oh my God, she's choking, right? As anyone would do. And I think that's when it got really bad. And that's when we were like, okay, yeah, we need to get rid of this board like ASAP. And so we brought it to a park to burn. And mind you, a Ouija board, this one was like the ones from Spirit Halloween, onto the ground. Now, I want to point out that look at that raw crystal, the big one, it's not even moved. I literally put it down in the exact spot, and none of the other crystals are moved. They're all in the exact same spot. I was that board. And I covered it in lighter fluid, and it took 2.5 hours to burn. 2.5 hours to burn. Yeah, it was. Ooh, I get chills. Yeah, it was really not cool. I have a lot more in-depth stories about things that happened to me while the board was underneath my bed, like scary stories that were super creepy, like, and things like that. So let me know if you want more of those. But yeah, that's my Ouija board story. This story. I have so many things that have happened with this entity on my Ouija board. I mistakenly played it in my own house in college and didn't know how to say goodbye, any of that stuff. And this thing has been haunting me for years after it ended up me getting an exorcism for the house itself. It was crazy. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today, believe it or not. So, one of the times that I had the Ouija board underneath my bed, I was on the phone on FaceTime with one of my girlfriends, and she's the only person that actually saw this happen. So I have an advocate, you know who you are. And yeah, it's a crazy story. So basically what happened was I was laying down in bed and just doing like my skincare or whatever. And my mom walked in to my room, but didn't fully walk in. Like she walked into the doorway, not into my room, in the doorway. And my mom is very friendly and very, very talkative. And whenever she sees my friends on the phone, she gets very excited. She instantly saw me, walked in, mind you, I thought she was sleeping. Walked in and looked at me like this. In the pitch black dark. I shit myself and I was like, oh my God, to my friend. I was like, oh my God, look, say hi to my mom, like tweaking. And she looked at her and said, and like her eyes were dead. Like, what are you doing? 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 Like over and over. Now, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit and tell you that 100% happened. We have cameras all over the house. I instantly called my dad and said, go check on mom, because she said that. And then she like tweaked a little bit and then walked away. I was like, not today. I'm not going to go find her. That's her journey. That's not mine. Called my dad. And then basically he was like, yeah, I'm going to check the footage of the cameras because I don't believe you. She's in bed. We go to look at the footage. There's nothing. Did not end up sleeping there that night. Yeah, that was fun.
Messing around. 3 people who know his middle name, and it is me, my biological dad, and my brother. And he had passed away 3 years prior to this. Like it wasn't even on his obituary.
So you've probably seen my face under the stitch before. I have a lot of different stories, but before you watch this one, it's important you watch my Ouija board story before I tell you about my boyfriend's experience with a Ouija board and a poltergeist spirit. I only say that so we can compare and contrast my experiences and better confirm that we should not play with these things because a lot of us don't know what the heck we're getting ourselves into. Some slight differences in the story. Obviously, I have always believed in spirits. He did not believe in spirits until this happened to him. Second, I physically made my board, and third, I physically touched my board. For him, he didn't touch it, and this board was already made. He was just there for the paranormal happenings following. And before I start this video, I just want to clarify what a poltergeist is. These are spirits that can physically move items that we see. So this is the doors opening, the doors slamming, the cabinets opening, your things going missing and moving. And for the sake of this video, my boyfriend's friends' names are Gage and Sean. So my boyfriend was already on the way to hang out with Gage and Sean had been hanging out earlier in the day, and they decided to play with this Ouija board that they found in Sean's sister's room. While my boyfriend was heading over there, he gets a text from Gage and Sean that essentially says, "You'll never believe this, but we've been watching this door open and close by itself." And specifically the door that had been opening by itself was the mudroom door, and when my boyfriend got there, he made sure to shut it hard. And he goes into the living room where Gage and Sean are, and they're literally sitting right next to each other, telling Andrew, "It's gonna open again, it's gonna open again." So they're hanging out, they're doing whatever. My boyfriend is making sure to keep looking at this door, like making sure that it's still closed once in a while. About 30 minutes passes, and Gage is like, "I'm thirsty, I'm gonna go get a glass of water," gets up, goes around the other side of the kitchen to avoid the door, gets a glass of water. My boyfriend looks down, looks back up, and the door is open about that much. Immediately, he's like, "I knew it, you guys are faking, because how is it possible that the door has been shut this whole time, but the moment Gage gets up, the door's open?" Gage flies around, and he's like, "We told you it had been opening before, it just didn't want to do it, and now it's doing it." And as they're all arguing over who opened the door, what's going on, whether to believe it or not, they hear the door creak. So they all whip their heads around and look down this hallway towards the mudroom, and they all watch this door swing open and slam shut. And my boyfriend specifically remembers the door slamming so hard it shook the house. So they all start freaking out. And after a while, after things calm down, my boyfriend approaches the door, and Gage and Sean are behind him, and he tries to open the door. No luck. It won't budge. And around this time, Sean's sister gets home and is like, "What are you guys up to? What are you guys even doing?" And when Sean and Gage tell his sister what they had been up to and what they had done before Andrew got there, her face turns white. And a very important detail that I've left out until this point is that Sean's sister works at a very famous haunted museum in my town. And she had brought this board home from the museum that she worked at. I don't know why. I don't know if she had permission. I don't know because I wasn't there. But the important thing is that this board was now in their house, and they had played with something that they weren't supposed to. So she starts panicking and telling them, "You have no idea what you did. You have no idea what you were messing with. Essentially, I'm going to have to cleanse the house, and let's just hope for the best." So eventually the four of them were able to open the door, and when they opened the door, everything in the mudroom had been taken off the walls, taken off the shelves, taken off the top of the laundry machines, thrown into the middle of the room, shoved against the door so they wouldn't be able to get in. Immediately my boyfriend is like, "No, I'm leaving. Goodbye. You guys are dumb for doing this." And he left. And that was that. From my understanding, Sean's sister cleansed the home, and they didn't have any experiences after that. I don't know. However, I am going to make a separate video about my boyfriend's first experience with a run-in after taunting spirits. Specifically, another object from this museum that I talked about, and I've decided to leave the museum's name out completely because number one, I don't want anyone to get in trouble, and number two, the internet's a really weird, scary place, and I don't want this to get the wrong exposure, essentially, because it is a good museum, it's a good place, especially for people who are skeptical. However, I will give this clue. The museum in my town has a very haunted doll. When I say very haunted doll, I mean one of the most haunted dolls in America.
and the doll is possessed by something that I can only assume is not a friendly spirit, because my boyfriend messed with the spirit and he got the horns. In short, don't mess with a Ouija board.
I've seen a lot of stitches to this video and I kind of want to add my own. So I was raised to believe in spirits. My mom believed in them. She saw them when she was younger, had experiences as an adult. My grandma has seen spirits, and I have been visited by dead people in my dreams. So just a disclaimer, everything that I'm about to say from my perspective, I believe it happened. However, my childhood friend who experienced these things with me would probably say otherwise. So when we were teenagers, we were really on the Ouija board train. So we played with it a handful of times, and it appeared that we had been visited by a handful of entities. Spirits is what they posed as, but typically it was me, my friend, and her mom that would play. And so every single time I would get on the board, whether like we were just beginning or her and her mom were playing and they were talking to one spirit, and then I would get on the board to talk to that same, well, I should say entity, not spirit. This one entity would always show up. She claimed to be a little girl who had been abused and by her mother via drowning in a bathtub. And she multiple times would start spiraling and go between the M-A, spelling out mama, like calling for her mom over and over again. And it's really weird, like saying this out loud now, because that's very creepy. But as a kid, I was just like, oh wow, like what's happening? However, that did not stop me from asking questions that I probably shouldn't have been asking. At the time, I didn't understand the capacity of the Ouija board, though. So one of the questions that I asked was how I would die. And this little girl told me that I was going to die being drowned in the lake, which is just so fucked up. It's really messed up. So I can't remember how many more times we played after that, but it kind of like teetered off because my friend and her mom started having experiences in their house. Like 2 separate things happened that they had told me about. The first one being that in my friend's mom's room, I think if I remember correctly, she had like a bunch of dolls in there, and her dolls would just start like moving and messing around, and she had to tell the spirit that, you know, you're not allowed in here, you're not invited, you need to leave. And then my friend told me about how, I can't remember exactly what happened, but my friend had told me that the thing had been whispering in her ear one night when she was trying to go to sleep, and she just screamed, "Get out," at it. And I think that was like the last that they ever experienced this entity in their house. But yeah, to this day, I've talked to my friend about it multiple times, and she's kind of rationalized it, probably for the better, because if I had experienced something like that to that extent, then I probably would want to just forget about it as well. However, I just went to her house and played with the Ouija board, had those experiences while I was there. And then I had the privilege of getting up and leaving the house and not experiencing anything after hours. So yeah, maybe not terribly creepy, or maybe not creepy to me, but this is basically your sign to not dabble with a Ouija board, because you can open up a portal and anything can come in and you don't know what you're going to be talking to. And if you're like me, you may just get a little girl calling out to her mom.
I'm not really proud of this story because it was something that I should have never gotten involved with, but it was scary, so I'll share it. So a few years ago, a veterinarian that I worked for invited the veterinary technicians over to her house for dinner, and it was her, me, and 3 other girls. We were all super close, hung out outside of work, just loved each other, trust each other completely. So we have dinner, we have drinks, we're dancing, having fun, just enjoying the night. And we all like scary movies and stuff like that. And she busted out the Ouija board, and she had like a really fancy one too. It was like crystal. So I didn't want anything to do with it because I'm really sensitive to spirit. So I didn't want to invite anything else. And so the doctor, and the other 3 technicians started it off, and they were asking questions, and immediately it's answering, moving all over the place. And I can tell you that I trust them all completely to know that they were not moving it. So I'm standing back watching. And so Sydney, my friend who's a technician, had lost her grandmother a few years ago, and I feel like what becomes natural when you have a Ouija board is asking questions about relatives that are gone, and she was kind of getting into that a little bit, and you could tell that whatever it was trying to portray that it was her grandmother. And so I told Sydney, I was like, ask it what your nickname was, and it couldn't answer it. And I was like, don't, just stop talking about her, move on, move subject. So it got so mad at Sydney, it didn't want anything to do with her anymore. The planchette flew off of the board, and they were like, well, if it doesn't want to talk to Sydney, does it want to talk to Brittany? And so the doctor asked the board, do you want to talk to Brittany? That's me. And it immediately went to yes, and then it spelled out yes. And I had had a few drinks, I was feeling a little bold, and I was terrified, but I got on the board, and it was immediately kind of starting to make circles and stuff. And as I mentioned in my other video, I lost my dad in 2021, and immediately that's what it latched on to. Like, it was pretending to know my dad. And the doctor was like, oh, what's Brittany's dad's name? And it's spelled Jim. It was my dad's name. And I had a long sleeve shirt on, and I have a tattoo that 143, that's the way that my dad and I always said I love you. And so the doctor was like, well, what is Brittany's tattoo? And it spelled out 413, so it was out of order. So at this point, I get upset, and I'm like, what you did to Sydney, what you're trying to do here, it's not right. I'm a religious person, so again, I know I shouldn't have gotten involved with the Ouija board, but I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, you have to stop. We're done with this conversation. We're leaving this conversation. And it started circling, and I said, you have to say goodbye. And it kept going to the no. And I wasn't going to stop until it said goodbye. And so it probably took several minutes of circling and going to the no for it to finally go to the goodbye. And that was the first and the last time that I will lay hands on a Ouija board, and I recommend that you do not do it yourself. Yeah.
So this is about a time when I was in about 4th grade, 5th grade, when you were 11, 12 maybe? No, 10, 11 maybe. And all of us neighborhood kids were friends. We all used to go to school together, so we all used to hang out together, and there was a good amount of us. Also, we all had siblings, so we all used to all play together all the time after school and stuff like that on the weekends. So one of the kids on our block got an Ouija board, and of course everybody was so excited about it. They were like, "Oh, that's so cool! That's cool!" And he was telling us, he was like, "Oh yeah, let's play it." Again, I was younger than them by just a year, so I was hesitant but I wasn't like, oh, like, no, we shouldn't. Like, I was just like, I'll watch you guys play. They asked me to play and I said no. So then we ended up playing it. So we went over to his house one day in the broad daylight. It was like afternoon. We went over and they took it out. We were in the basement and I was sitting on the couch. They were sitting on the floor. There was 3 of them playing. And they have to charge the Ouija board by light. I don't know. This was the first time it actually came out, I'm pretty sure, back in the day. And they had to charge it, I guess, towards light because it was like a glow in the dark. I don't know. So they charged it like that, and then they started playing. So like the first real questions were like, who are you? Like, how'd you die? All those like random, like normal questions that you would kind of want to ask to like get to, like, they were just trying to get to know it. They didn't even know what it was. They didn't even, well, at first they didn't even believe it. So they were all just like messing around and trying to figure out what it was. And they were like, oh, like, don't push it. Why are you pushing it? Why are you pushing it? Again, I'm pretty sure no one was pushing it, but it obviously, we didn't know better. We were so young. So whatever, they were playing it. It was like a very like uneasy, uncomfortable feeling. And I was sitting on the couch and I was just watching, and I'm just like, And then in the middle, they had to like pause to like charge it again so like it can continue glowing. So they asked it to like, they were like, oh, we'll be right back. So they charged it again and we started playing. And I kind of wanted to leave at this point. I was very uncomfortable. I wanted to really leave. But I said, fine, whatever. So they played it just a little bit more and then they said goodbye and they left. And we like kind of left it at that and we went outside and played. So then they played it again another day. I was very uncomfortable. So I said, no, I'll wait outside. You guys go play. And I remember like they went inside the basement. I was kind of sitting outside, just waiting for them to come back out. So they're playing it and they played it, whatever. They come back out and everything was fine. And we continued all playing and stuff. And then that night, like we had another neighbor who had just moved in and they were having something at their house. So I was very, very uncomfortable, very scared already because I just didn't know what to expect because, I don't know, I was just getting a very uncomfortable feeling and I did not like it. And my dad was actually out of town that weekend. So it was only me and my mom and my grandparents with my brother at home. So I was sleeping with my mom in her bed throughout the time my dad was home. So we had to go to our neighbor's house for something because they just moved in. They had something, so we were going. So at the end, whatever, we're walking back down. And you know how like everybody has house lights, like outside, like outdoor lights. So like porch lights. So, everybody's porch lights were on because, everybody was going to this neighbor's house, whatever. And, we're walking down and all the moms are kind of just chit-chatting and I'm just standing there waiting for my mom. So they're all chit-chatting and whatever. And I look down at my shadow. And when I tell you, there was another shadow right behind me. And if you know me, I have told people this story because that was my first experience with something like this. You look down and you saw my shadow and there's a shadow right behind me. Again, there was no one behind me that could have the same exact shadow. It was like a shadow, but it was attached to me, the same shadow. When I tell you, I went around where I was standing, I went around in the circle to see if the shadow followed. It literally followed me. I turned and it followed, like the shadow was there. Whatever was attached was there. And I was so scared. I came home into the door and my mom and me walked in and my grandparents are here. We're in the kitchen. And when I tell you, I broke down into tears. I was so scared. I broke down into tears and my mom was like, what happened? And I'm like, well, we played this and I'm so scared. Like, I was like, this just happened, blah, 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 whatever. She's like, it's okay. Like, well, you'll be fine. Like, just say God's name, X, Y, Z. Fine. So we go to bed. We go upstairs, we go to her room, we go to bed. And then as the lights are off, whatever, it's about like 12 o'clock now. And like me and my mom, so there's no one upstairs on the second floor. It's just me and my mom and my grandparents are on the first floor with my brother on this floor. So it's just me and my mom upstairs, right? And her door is shut, completely shut. And we hear a thump, like something fell in her room in front of us. When I tell you, I was just like, me and my mom both, well, she got startled, and I was awake, and I'm like, Mom, what was that? She was like, oh, it's probably nothing, like, it was probably nothing. I'm like, are you sure? She goes, yeah, like, it might have been like a frame or something that fell, or something on my dresser that fell. She goes, just go back to bed. And I'm like, okay. So the next morning, I wake up, and I look to see if, and no one's awake. Not a single soul is awake yet. It's only me and my mom, and me and her just rose herself from the bed, and we look over onto the floor to see if anything fell. Nothing fell. All of our picture frames were up. Nothing fell. Nothing was on the floor. When I tell you, after that day, I will not ever in my life play with an Ouija board. I will not. I refuse to. I am scared shitless with those things, and those things are real. To make this story worse is that I was talking to my friend after this incident happened. I went over to her house like a couple days later, and we were like in her like garage, and we're like chit-chatting, whatever, and the Ouija board comes up, and she goes, yeah, I asked them about you. And I'm like, excuse me? Say what? You asked what about me? She goes, I asked them about you. And I'm like, what did you say? And she was like, I asked the spirit if it knew you. And the spirit said, I'm going to follow her. The spirit said it was going to follow me. And I had no clue until all that happened. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. So note to self, moral of the story, don't ever play with a Ouija board.
Excuse me while I'm getting ready, but this is my time. So when I was in second grade, my cousin was murdered. And this has been an unsolved murder to this day. So my family had been going through detective after detective. They would have a detective. That person would retire. And from the my aunt's unwavering grief that she had, she was consulting psychics. And so, and my grandmother, her sister, decided to play the Ouija board one day with my mother. So imagine I'm in second grade. I'm a curious pain in the ass. And I keep walking by my grandma's room and seeing my mom and my grandmother, or my grandmother and my mother, sitting on my grandmother's bed with the Ouija board, asking questions about the murder, trying to contact Luann. So I walk by, and my grandmother says, I'm like, I want to play. Can I play? You know, being a pain in the ass. And my mother says, no, Jamie. I was like, what are you doing? She was like, it's just a game, but it's an adult game that you can't play. Well, I could never take no for an answer. So, of course, I sat there, please, can I just play a little bit? Can I just play one time? All that shit. So, my mother gives in, and I sit on the opposite side to my grandmother. And my grandmother asks the question, who killed you, Luann? Exactly like that. Who killed you? Who murdered you? So, I'm over here, my grandmother's across from me, and my mom is watching all of this happen. We're in the dark, in my grandma's room, on her bed, and the board spelled out Fucku. So I didn't really understand what was going on, or what was going on. It's second grade. I'm not spelling out letters. I don't know how this thing works. I just know that I'm sitting here with my hands on it, exactly like they told me. And I see my mom gasp and goes, Mom, it just spelled out, fuck you. And my grandmother, let me tell you about my grandmother. She does not like swearing. Called my mom a truck driver, threatened to wash my mouth out with soap my whole life. Swung her hands off the board, got up, and the fear and the shock that I witnessed in my mother and my grandmother's faces said it all. Said it absolutely all. To this very day, I mean, I have multiple. The board was basically taken and put the hell away. Okay. And I wound up grabbing that board when I was in high school, or like, yeah, right into high school, because I was so curious. You know, that moment left such an imprint on me. Like, oh my God, you know, it's just a game. Is it just a game? Is it now? Because my grandmother's surely not spelling out "fuck you" to me in second grade. So I grabbed that board and continued to play in high school with one of my best friends. And boy, oh boy, do I have more stories. But I can tell you one thing, is that board is not a fucking game. That's for fucking sure that I know. That's what I got. If you want to hear more stories about my other seances with the Ouija board, let me know. I'll be sure to post another one.
All right, here's my ghost story. And try to keep it brief. There's lots of other details I can make videos on and add later. And lots of other events surrounding this and time periods of my life that I'd be happy to share. So this particular occasion, my ghost story, is about me and 4 other friends. It was me and 2 other males, 2 other females. We were all, 18 to 21 years old. And one of the females owned her own home, so we hung out over there a lot. We'd drink, we'd smoke, hang out, and she started telling us about her house being haunted. Cabinet doors opening by themselves when she left the room, dogs not wanting to enter empty rooms or barking at empty rooms, that kind of thing. Nothing crazy. So I'm like, ooh, this sounds cool. I am a skeptic at this huge point in my life, and I'm still pretty skeptical about a lot of stuff. But as a skeptic, I'm like, all right, this is a chance for me to get some direct experiences to base my understanding of the paranormal off of. It's a chance to peel back the veil. So we get a Ouija board. We start doing sessions. 10 to 20, somewhere in that range. Over these sessions, we make contact with supposedly 3 entities. One, the main one, being Zaza. Zaza described itself as a demon and was malicious and would say awful things. There was a second entity, very aggressive, older male, who was very controlling, very angry, and very possessive of the third entity, who was a younger, more docile, female kind of presence. Now, keep in mind, the first entity, Zaza. Look up the name, right? Very, likes to lie, likes to goad people, wants to keep you coming back for more, so to speak. So, in my mind, a lot of what we were being told was just BS. Now, Ouija boards get a lot of crap, but as a skeptical person, let me tell you, when I first felt that planchette move out of its own accord from my fingertips, it was weird. So this escalates to more paranormal activity, roaming cold spots, seeing cabinet doors slowly open, hearing sounds coming from empty rooms. But in my mind, nothing that still couldn't be explained away, right? Occam's razor. Simplest explanation is usually the best one, right? So, whatever. Decided to have a seance. I'm the acting medium. I open myself up, we light the candles, make an offering, and I open myself up to possibility. And I black out. I don't remember a majority of the seance. The things I do remember aren't, very fun to describe. Like, I remember watching myself smash my face on the table. I remember raising my hands and cackling and seeing the table shake. But my friends started getting uncomfortable, and they broke the chain, ended the seance, and I kind of came out of it. It felt like when I was experiencing the seance, it felt like I was dissociating, and no, I don't have a dissociative identity disorder or anything. I see a psychologist, I have a therapist, nothing like that. It felt like I was waking up from a nap you took after school. I was kind of disoriented, confused, and wanted to see one last big show of effort from whatever was there. I'm standing at one end of the table, friend sitting at the other end, and I'm goading it. Give me something else. What can you do? And the table proceeds to slide fast enough across a 3-foot distance or so to stagger me back a couple of steps. And I'm not a small guy, I'm 6'3", 300 pounds. My buddy wasn't even touching the table. His hands were resting in his lap. And that's where it ended. Like I said, there's other stories I can tell surrounding these events and times earlier in my life and times since then. Things I've felt and experienced and seen. That's been enough to make me not a skeptic about a lot of things. So stay away from Ouija boards and don't listen to Zaza. Thanks for listening.
I really wasn't going to make this TikTok because compared to the other ghost stories that I've heard with the Stitch, I didn't think mine really stacked up to it. But you know what? Here goes. And this is the reason why I will never, ever, ever, ever use a Ouija board again. So when I was 16, I was always interested in the paranormal and metaphysics. So I bought my first Ouija board. And that night, me, my sister, and our friends decided to play with the Ouija board, and it started to move on its own, which was really weird. And we were all blaming each other for it. No, you're pushing it. No, you're pushing it. No, you're pushing it. But if you've ever used a Ouija board, you know when somebody's pushing it and when it's moving organically. This planchette was moving organically. Now, before I continue, it's really important that I say that me and my sister weren't raised religious. In fact, we considered ourselves Catholic, but we never went to church or practiced Christianity in any way. So just keep that in mind. So we kept using the Ouija board and we made friends with the spirit. Now, I'm not going to say the name of the spirit because I do believe that there is power in the name. So I'm going to leave that out. However, every time that we would play with the Ouija board, he would answer our questions and he seemed very nice and friendly. We thought anything of it. We were like, oh, now we have a friend on the other side. Little did we know. So one day we're in my sister's room and we, me, my sister and her friends were all playing with the Ouija board and my mother comes in. And again, like I was saying, we weren't raised religious. We were, I guess, Catholic, but we never practiced Christianity. And the planchette went crazy. It started going around and around and around, and it was very forceful as well. And we asked it, what's going on? Why are you acting crazy? And the planchette spelled your mom. And we looked at my mom and we were like, what about our mom? Then the planchette immediately kept going crazy, crazy, and crazy. And it said, she is of God. And we all looked at each other and we looked at our mom, and the planchette all of a sudden flew off of the board onto the floor. We were, let's just say it's a good thing that our pants were clean. That's how scared we were. And we picked up the planchette and we made sure to say goodbye to the spirit. We were like, no, you're leaving. Goodbye. Goodbye. And finally, when the planchette said goodbye, we were a little bit more relieved. However, I got rid of that Ouija board, and that is why I will never, ever, ever use a Ouija board. If you want to know the future or something, look at other means, maybe tarot, astrology, partner up with a medium, something like that. But don't use a Ouija board. It is not recommended. You never know what's on the other side. You never know what you're talking to, and you never know what is deceiving you. So just don't use a Ouija board.
Okay, yes, I do have some. I actually have a lot, but I'm going to just do the ones that probably stick with me the most. So, to start off, the first time that I can remember anything bizarre happening, I was 6, going on 7 years old, and I know that's a young age, but I remember this so vividly, and to this day, and I am now 30, and to this day. Like, I still know the room, the color, the smell, everything. So my dad worked night shift, and it was just me, my brother, and my mom. And my mom would let us sleep in the bed with her when dad was at work, just because, you know, we lived in a mobile home, and the bedrooms were all opposite ends, and it was just made her feel more comfortable. And so one night in particular, I was laying there, and I was in the middle of the bed. My brother was next to the wall, and my mom was on the edge. And they were both asleep for some reason. Don't ask me why I was awake, but it was. And across the bed, we didn't have, this was an old mobile home, so we didn't have no doors on the closet. It was just open, and at the time, my mom had just had some, like, crocheted blankets to kind of hide the clothes away, I guess. And so I remember just laying there. I was looking straight into the closet, and everything just kind of seemed to get dark. Like, I'm just staring at one spot in particular, and everything's getting dark. And then I'm laying there in this figure, I mean, I'm small, don't get me wrong, but this figure was 6 feet tall. I mean, every bit almost to the ceiling. You know, it's just a mobile home, and the ceiling's not that tall, but, and it walks up. There's no face. There's absolutely no face. It is black as black can be. And it's an outline. You can see the outline of the head and the broad shoulders. It looks very masculine. I felt paralyzed. Like, the fact of me being that young and feeling that paralyzed in fear alone, I couldn't scream. I couldn't even, my mom was literally laying beside me, and I couldn't smack her, I couldn't nothing. So this figure slowly, it's almost like it was not walking, but like levitating to the end of the bed. And it's standing directly at the foot of the bed, and I'm just staring at it in fear. And I know I'm not asleep. Like, I know I'm not asleep. And then it just slowly starts to move around the bed to the side where my mom is. And at this point, like, I can see still the shoulders and the head, and I can see the arms, like, down by the side. It never moved its head, never moved its torso. It was just, like, floating. Like, slowly floating to the side where my mom was. And then, like, I instantly, at some point, like, I grabbed the covers, like, I guess the fear paralyzed was not there no more. I just grabbed the covers and threw them over my head. And I could hear my heart beating. And I couldn't move. Like, I could not move. And I honestly stayed underneath those covers until daylight. I don't even think I fell asleep. I think it was like time just was stopped. But it went by so fast, because by the time I knew it, morning was there. And I mean, as soon as I woke up, or as soon as daylight hit, and I tried telling my mom, I was like, Mom, this happened. And of course, you know, I'm 6, 7 years old. So, you know, the thing is, it's like, you know, you're probably dreaming, honey. It's no big thing. But even now, I am 30, and I can still tell this story. There's a pink blanket across the curtains, or across the closet. I tell her now to this day, and my mom does not do paranormal. Like, she believes it's real. She watches all these shows. She does not fuck with it. Like, there's just, you know, she's not that kind of person. My dad, he's a provoker, so he provokes it. But I never did tell Dad, but I did tell Mom, and she was like, no, you're probably dreaming. No big thing. Okay, no big thing. So I was around the same age, same place, and I had a friend over. And our rooms were kind of tiny, no big deal, but she had stayed the night. I had a dresser, a tiny closet, and she had stayed the night, and we went to bed, you know, normal time, fairly early, but that morning, I know that we had woke up, and she looks over at me, and she was like, I seen something in your room. And I mean, we're 7 years old, like, we're in first grade, maybe, if that. And she's like, I seen something, and she was like, it was tall, it was dark, it was just a figure. She's like, I couldn't make it out. She's like, but I seen something at the end of your bed. And she was sleeping, like, I had like a twin bed, so she was sleeping like beside me. And at some point she had gotten to the floor. I think she just rolled out. But anyways, she knows who you are. If you see this, you know who you are. You remember seeing it. But, and I remember telling her, like, I have to. Like, you know, it's just something that happens. And that was like the only thing that happened whenever I was little in that trailer. As far as I know, whenever I got older, my grandparents took over that place, and I remember Mom telling me that my nana at the time, when she was still alive, she had heard voices in the house, you know, just saying like, hello. There's a deep man voice. And I mean, I don't recall that I was scared because I was little, but I don't know if it was anything to be fearful of. I never had any more experiences as far as I can remember, but that one has stuck with me. It will always stick with me, and I will believe my kids whenever they say anything. But that one has stuck with me. Now, after that, fast forward a little bit, we had moved, same county and stuff, but we had moved, and we were living in a different mobile home, and it was kind of a rural area. There wasn't like neighbors beside you. Like, they were up a while from you. And I mean, we were way out in the country, and I remember my brother had this friend, and he was the cutest little friend ever. And he was just, but apparently his mom and him, or his family, you know, they dabbled in the Ouija board stuff. And you know, this may have been, I was probably in middle school when we played with this Ouija board. But his friend had come over, and Mom had put up the tent outside. Thought we could have a little camp out. I had a friend over. My brother had his friend, and that was my brother. So his friend brings this Ouija board. Now, we knew a little bit about a Ouija board, but it wasn't something that anybody really talked about. Mind you, there's no cell phones at this time. There's like, you know, there's nothing to do for kids except sleep out in a tent and play with a Ouija board that you have no idea about. So yeah, I mean, he seemed really educated in this Ouija board. And now that I look back on it, I think, you know, his mom and them must really have dabbled in this a lot. Because, I mean, he just seemed so in tune with it and knowing what to do. And I mean, like, he had done this 100 times. And, you know, and this was our first time in this circle. So he gets it out. We only have like flashlights in this little tent. We have one flashlight, and it's just lighting up the tent. And we have the Ouija board. And he instructs us on what to do. So we all put our hands on it, and we are asking random questions. You know, I think at one point we were trying to contact what was my grandfather that had passed away many years back. And so we were trying to get in contact with him. And my brother's friend knew how to do these things. So, I mean, however he opened up this realm, he did. And so we were asking questions, and at one point, it just gets really cold in this tent. And like, you know, we're all being really quiet because we're very curious, but at the same time, we're kind of fearful. I'm fearful. I know my friend was fearful, and I know my brother was. but his friend was not. Like, he was dead set excited about this. And at one point he asked, you know, can you show yourself? You know, in form, like, show yourself. Now I'm sitting and my friend is to my left, my brother's friend's to my right, and my brother is directly across from me. And I want to say it was like, we had the flashlight, but there was a different light. This was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like a glow. And then, like, I felt hands on my shoulder. Like, 2 hands, like, on my shoulders. Almost like somebody's, like, hugging you from behind. And I remember being so still and looking at my brother and my friend to my left, and their faces went blank. I mean, my brother's whole body just went to fear. Just fear, his eyes, and the fact of them staring at me and behind me. And I can't move. Like, I cannot move. Like, I'm shaking. I could not move. And they were looking directly. I mean, directly right here. And it's like I could feel whatever it was, whether or not it was my grandfather. I don't believe you should mess with Ouija boards. I think that anything can be anybody or portray to be anything. Now that I'm older and I realize this. But yeah, the fear. it was straight fear for me. My brother instantly let go of everything, got up, out the tent, gone. Same thing, like, we just kind of closed it up. Like, the excitement on my brother's friend's face was unreal. Like, he had seen this before. He had probably done this so much that this was not scary to him. It terrified us. So we closed it up. No big deal. We were done playing with it. You know, didn't really have anything else go on that night. A couple weeks later, now I had a little bird. It was a little cockatiel, I think that's how you say them. But anyway, she had a little swing, and I always hung her in my windowsill, just in my windowsill, and she would swing. It was in the evening. It was kind of late at night. It was dark enough that, you know, you couldn't really see out the window outside. And so I'm getting dressed for night, and the bird's just swinging. And, you know, I'm turned away from her, and I'm getting dressed, and then, like, I hear this, like this knock on the window, like, just like a peck. And I thought maybe my bird hit the window, because when she's swinging, she'd get a good little thing going. And I thought maybe she just, like, you know, hit her face, her beak or whatever on the window. So, you know, I go over there, and I'm looking at her and making sure she's okay, because I love this bird, and I hated for her to get hurt. And, like, I'm looking at her, and then I look out the window, and I'm, like, trying to look at the window, like, is there a mark on the window? Is there anything? And when I tell y'all, something hit the window as I'm looking out it, like, hits it. There's nothing fucking out there. There's nothing out there. The fear. I got so mad and angry, and I mean, I was beyond upset. I thought my dad was playing with me. Like, I thought my dad gone outside, gone around to the house, the side where my bedroom window was, which it was off the ground, like, don't get me wrong. And, like, I took off down the hall, and I get to the bedroom. My parents are asleep. I mean, dead ass sleeping. And I, like, wake Dad up in fear. Like, I am in fear. And, like, I'm shaking him. And I'm like, Dad, get up. And he's like, what's wrong? Like, you know, instantly intuitive. And
I said, did you peck my window? And he said, no. And he said, no, I'm in the bed. What do you mean? What are you talking about? He goes outside, looks everywhere. Looks everywhere. There's nothing out there. Like, there's nobody out there. Nothing. And, we kind of live on like a hilltop too. So, you could have seen somebody in this area if there was a person. And just, I mean, to this day, I do not leave my window open. Like, I have to have blankets or something covering my windows, because it terrified me to the point, like, if I can't see out the window, but something can see in, or never again. Never. Terrified me. Never again will I ever. Fast forward a little bit from that. It was about a couple months after playing with the Ouija board and the window, and a couple months later we had moved into town, and there was we lived in this house. I'm sure it had been there a while. Don't ask me how old this house was. I'm sure it was built when the county was built, but we were living in this house, and it was old-fashioned house. I mean, it was hardwood floors, old kind of doors that creaked really loudly. It had an attic, had a basement. It was just, you know, straightforward. You could see almost every room, and, you know, so one night in particular, it seemed to go on for a while though. Every night we would go to bed, everything's fine and normal. But every morning we'd wake up, my mom had a kitchen table, and it had wooden chairs, and there'd always be one chair that would be brought into the middle of the living room, like feet from the table, directly under like a ceiling fan, every morning. And Mom would ask us, like, why are we putting this chair in the middle of in the middle of the living room? You know, me and my brother's like, we're not doing this. This is not us. You know, I'm middle school age. You know, he's old enough. If he's doing it, he would have said something. He's only 2 years younger than me. We were not messing with this chair. Like clockwork, every morning this chair would be out. Mom would just put it back, disregard it, not say anything. You know, and she'd even ask my dad, hey, are you putting this damn chair here? Like, are you putting this chair here? Because you're pissing me off. And Dad'd be like, I swear I'm not. I swear to you I'm not putting this chair here. And Mom would just be like, okay, out of sight, out of mind. It's not happening. And, you know, my dad's arrogant sometimes. He'd be like, well, you know, if you want to impress me, open up all the cabinets in the house. You know, if you want to impress me, do this. It's just how he is. And, you know, my mom would be like, it better not, because we're going to leave. Like, we will move if something like this happens. So, I can remember my brother's friend coming back over many times. Like, he was always around. There was one day in particular. He said, we have to do the Ouija board again. This was months after we played with the Ouija board. At least 6 months, I would say. At least 6 months. You know, we had already moved to a new place, and he comes back, and he's very hesitant about, hey, we have to get back on this Ouija board, because we didn't close anything out. Now, I have no idea what he's talking about, because I was ignorant to the Ouija board. I didn't know what we were supposed to do, what we weren't supposed to do. He said, you need to get your friend back over here, and we need to close this out. Like, why do we have to close this out? And he says, my mom said that you cannot, like, leave these open for spirits to come in and out. They could harm you. They could do, you know, all possible things. Apparently, this is coming from him, not me. I am not an expert. Do not come at me. And So, okay. We did. Don't think I told my mom this, so when she sees this, she's probably gonna get upset. Anyways, he brings the Ouija board back over to this new place we're living at. Mind you, the chair's already been coming out in the mornings. And, so we're on this Ouija board again. And he just it was basic little things. It wasn't no candles lit or nothing. It was pretty much, he just said a few things about you're not welcome here or there or something. I don't even know if anything was going on with him at his house and that this led to us having to do this. I have no idea. He never said. All I know is he said we must do this. This is what his mom said, and this is what we had to do. So that's what we did. So we did that. The biggest thing that stuck with me was he said these things could harm you if we didn't close these out, or possible things sticking to you, you know, staying with you through life. I mean, that terrifies me. Okay, that scares me. So, as far as I know, whatever we had done it. We closed it out. Whatever he said we needed to do, we did. And, it was about a year later, and he ended up passing away. He ended up taking his life. And, yeah, that was really hard. Because I look back, you know, and I think it burdens me to think that maybe, you know, something got to him, you know, in a way, in a sense that he took his own life, and that was really hard. And that sticks with me. That, you know, that still sticks with me to this day. So I do not recommend you play with Ouija boards. I do believe in the paranormal. I've had a lot of things happen, even more so than this. This just seems to be a long video. But I do have a few more incidents that has happened, even now in my 30s. And, so yeah, I just wanted to tell you my stories. They're not big, they're not huge, but it did impact my family. And, so yeah, that was pretty much it. Thanks for listening. I'm sorry it's so long.
Oh boy, is this my side of TikTok. So, when I was a younger kid, about 12 years old, I was playing Call of Duty on my computer, and my dad was at work, my mom was downstairs, and my sister, I believe, was in her room. Out of the corner of my eye, while I was playing on the computer, I saw a little girl on the other extremity of my room, on the other side of my bed. So I thought to myself, oh, this must be an angel or some type of positive presence, because everything that had appeared to me so far in my life was dark, instantly evil, instantly tormenting me, well, whatever. So I'm like, oh, it's something positive. It's an angel, something here to save me. I felt those feelings at that young age that I needed to be saved. So as it's getting closer, I noticed that it's praying. I'm like, oh, this is definitely something good. Like, I'm glad that this is what's happening right now, that this is what's transpiring. As it got even closer, I'd say about like the front of the bed. So my desk was here, front of the bed would be like right behind me, and then the other side is where it had started walking from. I noticed it was praying backwards. So I froze. You know how they say fight or flight? It was neither. I just froze. I didn't move. And then I felt this cold touch on my shoulder, and I looked on my shoulder, and I saw this old wrinkly hand. I swear on everything I love. And I quickly got up and turned around, saw nothing. I ran down the steps. I took my shoes. I didn't even put them on inside the house. I put them on outside of the house. And then I proceeded to stay outside of the house for the remainder of the day, which when I came in, long after the streetlights had turned on, I got physically reprimanded for staying out for that long. I said why I had stayed out for that long. I was not believed until other things started to happen in the house affecting other family members. But those are stories for another day. Or maybe today. It depends on the response in this video. But that is my unbelievable haunted story. And I have ones way far more unbelievable than those. But I thought I would just share this one.
I just experienced the glitch stitch with that video, so I recorded the whole thing and there was no sound. So let me start over. So my friend and I have been sitting that stitch back and forth all day, and one of the girls that stitched the video had a dream story. So I have a dream story. I've had lots of paranormal experiences throughout my life. They've tapered off as I've gotten older, just because like I don't read about it. I try not to like think about it too much, but I've had a lot of experiences. So I have really never had any paranormal experience in this house. We bought this house 6 years ago, never had an issue until recently. I had a dream a couple of months ago, a full lucid dream where I was telling myself that I needed to wake up. I was laying in my bed, just how it is now. My husband and I were talking, and he was kind of laying across my torso with like his head on his hand like this, looking at me, but I'm looking at the ceiling. So he's talking to me and he sounds fine. He sounds like he's in a good mood, like nothing crazy. And something is telling me not to look at him. It's like telling me, don't look down, don't look down, don't look down. So finally, of course, I look down. I look down and it's him, but this circle around his face is black like a void. And I'm telling myself I need to stay calm. And I'm telling myself I need to wake myself up outside of the dream. And I'm telling myself like, hey, he's in the bed with you. You need to wake up you need to wake him up so he can wake you up. So I'm telling myself this, he's still talking, and we're just having a regular like conversation. And I'm telling myself, all right, you need to wake yourself up. So it was almost like my mouth was being held shut because I'm asleep, but I can feel my mouth trying to move, and I'm yelling help, like, like in my mouth, I'm yelling help. And I can feel myself trying to open my mouth, and I'm doing this motion like while I'm sleeping. I can feel it. I know I'm shaking my desk. Excuse my cat, you can hear there. So I'm yelling help in my sleep with my mouth closed, and I'm not waking up, and I'm telling myself, you need to get away from him. And so I start like thrashing. I'm kicking my legs I'm gonna fight him. So I'm kicking my legs, and all of a sudden I'm woken up because he's got his hand on my shoulder and he's sitting up. And he goes, you were having a bad dream. And I said, was I yelling for help? And he goes, yes, I could hear you yelling, like trying to yell, but your mouth wouldn't open, or your mouth was closed. And then I kind of like, holy shit. And I said, was I kicking my legs? He goes, no, you were like sprinting, trying to kick or whatever you were doing. And I told him I didn't tell him at night, but I told him when we woke up, and I went back to sleep, like nothing happened. So I tell him the next morning what's going on, and he's just kind of like looking at me. He was like, you were yelling for help, like somebody was killing you, and you were trying to get away from whatever was happening. And to this day, like I think about this right now, like I literally have goosebumps again when I think about that. That is one of the scariest experiences I've ever had, because I was awake, like I was fully conscious the whole time it was happening, and like something was telling me I needed to wake up, because whatever that was, whatever he was doing was gonna get me. The light keeps changing, but I feel like I'm gonna have to like turn this into like several explanations, because I have a lot of really freaky paranormal stories. So yeah, I'm gonna do some more stitches.
Okay, how do I start this? So I was about, I think 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. It was me and my 5 sisters. We lived in my parents' house they bought back in 1990. It's always been a haunted house. We were all used to it. My parents don't care about that paranormal stuff. My mom was a white witch, so she's a psychic, and she's into witchcraft. So they went out on a date night, and it was just me and my 5 sisters at home. They were babysitting me and my other sister at the time. So my parents decided to take in a foster teenager and decided to go through my mom's witchcraft stuff. And so basically she stole one of my mom's books and went in the basement and messed around with it, seeing if it was real. And basically, I don't know what happened. I was just a little girl at the time. So all I remember was the lights suddenly, all the lights in the house started flickering on and off, and then the windows were, I'm just getting anxiety even talking about it, started opening and shutting, and the cabinets in the kitchen started opening and slamming, the windows open and shutting. And then I noticed that when I looked in the backyard with my sister, because we were all freaking out, trying to get out of the house, and I noticed that my father's truck, his Dodge Ram, rolled in the back from the driveway, and it started rolling into the backyard, and it slammed into the shed in the back, and it was crazy. And then I remember my room was upstairs in the house, so I remember I just wanted to go to my room and I just wanted to hide under my blanket. So I remember trying to run upstairs, but then I stopped at the end of the stairs and I saw this demon-like, tall, black, long-fingered creature slowly walking down the steps. And I just remember just staying there in shock. Like, what is this thing? Like, I'm scared and I'm feared. And then I remember my sister, she ran up to me and she saw it and she screamed and she grabbed me. And she took me and my sister and ran out the front door. And then my parents just got back from their date night, and my mom noticed that the house was flickering and the windows were slamming and stuff and the cabinets, and my dad noticed that the truck was in the backyard. And so my mom basically had to I don't know, close a portal or something. I don't know, something with her book. But yeah, so me and my 6 siblings experienced that, and nobody believes us, but my entire family knows what happened.
I've seen this trend going around, and it's time that I finally weigh in and tell you guys my story. There is a photo at the end of this video that confirms the things that happened that night, and you can take this and leave this. You can believe me or you cannot. I don't really care. But I know for a fact that this story is true, and luckily I had a lot of people there with me participating that night that also experienced what I experienced. So very validating, and I know I wasn't going crazy when this thing happened. So here we go. In 2012, I was 21, 22 years old, and my friend was having a kickback at her house up in the woods in Connecticut. That's where I'm from. And we all went to her house and we're drinking, like margaritas late at night. We're all just like kind of getting drunk and chilling out. And it was October time. So it was spooky season, and I'm a spooky boy. Like I'm really into the supernatural. I always have been. I like to get a little witchy. And we all kind of got bored. Like the night died down. We were sick of playing Mario Kart, and I proposed to the group, like, hey, do you guys want to do like a seance? Like, do you guys want to do a Ouija board? I've done them before. They've been fun. Sometimes they're cool. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you don't get anything, kind of just like messing around. And many of the people were spooked, and a couple of my friends were like, no fucking way, we're not doing that. But other people were like, yeah, whatever, we can like do a Ouija board. So I literally went into, I didn't know how to do one because we didn't have a physical Ouija board there. Like we didn't have the board. So I went into the bathroom and I went into WikiHow and I was like, how to make a Ouija board. And here's what we came up with. So we took a pizza box from pizza that we had ordered earlier that night and like cut out the pizza box and cut out a pointer out of cardboard and drew like all the letters and the hello, goodbye, yes, no onto this old pizza box. And we took a glass. So we took like just a glass and we flipped it upside down, and that was going to be our pointer. So we all sat in a circle. My friend who was like really into hocus pocus was like, put a circle of salt around, you know, like, I don't know, to keep the witches out, whatever. So we put this circle of salt around us, and we put our pizza box Ouija board down on the floor, and we all took 2 fingers and held the glass and started moving the glass around like clockwise in a circle the way that you're supposed to. And we lit a candle and we like said a little spell that we got from the internet. We were just like, any spirits that are around, like, we invite you to speak to us, like, you know, is there anyone here? Nothing happens for maybe 30 seconds. And my friend Stacy, she, who was sitting across the room from us, said she got a really, really intense chill. And it did not make many of the people in our room in the Ouija board feel like that were doing it feel very good. Like, everybody started to get a little bit freaked out, but we were kind of like, is she messing around? Like, is she joking? She's insisting that she's not, but I'm like, whatever, let's like keep going. So this continues on for like 3 or 4 minutes, and we're not getting anything, and we're just about to stop. And my friend Tiffany, whose finger was on the pointer, all of a sudden has this, she just jumps. And she's like, guys, I just felt something really weird. Like, I just felt this pointer move. And like, if it like jerked toward me in a real way. And the weird thing was, I didn't feel that. So all of our fingers were on the pointer, and I didn't feel it jump towards her. But she was like insisting that she felt something, and I was like, that's a good sign. Like, don't be freaked out about that. I was just like so naive. I was like, let's keep going. So we keep going, and the pointer lands. It was like a man's name, and we asked him, like, are you from here? Did you die here? Are you from the past? And then the question that really freaked us out was, we asked, like, are you staying in the mortal world because you need to finish something? And the pointer moved to yes. And at that point, my friend Tiffany flipped out, and she was like, we are done. I'm done with this. We have to like close it up. So at that time we were like, okay, we bid you goodbye, spirits, you know, say goodbye. I was like kind of orchestrating the whole thing. So it was very much like the conductor of this group of people, because it was like my idea. I didn't get anything too spooky at this point. My friend Tiffany was really freaked out. She said she like really felt something. It felt like whatever the spirit was like looking at her or eyeing her. And so we said goodbye. We closed the portal, blew out the candle, boom, goodbye, done. My friend Tiffany, earlier that night had bought a box of cigarettes. Like, she's like one of those people that only smokes when she gets drunk, and we were obviously all very drunk. And so the box of cigarettes was unopened, and my friend was like, you can't smoke cigarettes at my parents' house. Like, they're going to smell it when they get home in like an hour. Like, you can't do that. The interesting thing is, before she like opened the box, she was like, can I at least flip the lucky? And if you're a cigarette smoker, you know about like cigarette smoking culture. When you get a box of cigarettes, you flip the center one upside down, and that becomes your lucky cigarette, and you smoke that one last. I don't know, if you smoke it, you make a wish, or it's lucky or something. But my friend, whose house we were at, was like, don't even open the box of cigarettes, because I know if you do, you're going to smoke it. This is very important. This is not a random detail. This comes back later. So it's time for us all to go. We're all like packing up, and I didn't drive with my friend Stacy, who was the one who didn't participate in the seance. I drove separately because we both came from different places. So we said goodbye to everybody. We were like, okay, fun, spooky night, adios. And my friend Stacy gets in her car, and she's parked before me. So she pulls out, and then I pull out, and she heads down the street, and I follow her. We lived in the same town at the time, and so we were just going to follow each other home. I'm driving my car down the hill that night, and all of a sudden I feel something really weird in my car. It feels like one of my tires is like sputtering, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I call Stacy, and I was like, Stacy, I feel like I have a flat tire. Like, can you pull over at this gas station? And she's like, yeah, no problem. Like, we'll just pull it over right now. We pull over at the gas station. I get out of my car, and my rear driver's side tire, I kid you not, was slashed. Somebody or something slashed my tire, and not in one place. The tire was slashed 10 times. When we brought the car later to the mechanic, he described he said he had never seen anything like it, and he described the tire puncture marks as having been stabbed multiple times in the tire in like a big circle, and the marks were random. It wasn't from the tire popping or being too full of air. Something stabbed my tire. And the guy was like, I've never seen anything like this. And I tried to tell him the story, and he was like, no, but I got really freaked out. So before I even bring the car to the mechanic, that night we're pulled over at the gas station. I started having a panic attack because I'm like, first of all, did a spirit just slash my fucking tire? And then two, I'm like, how am I going to tell my mom that like a phantom, it was her car, like slashed her tires? Never going to believe that, right? So we call everybody who's still at the house. And our friend Mike, he's like kind of like a guy's guy. He's a guy can fix the tire. Like, I'll come down there right now. Everybody from the house comes down because I'm freaking out. I'm like, guys, I'm afraid this like thing is like following me home, or like is like, you know, is like affecting us. Like, this thing attacked my tire, and everyone's like, we don't know what it could be. Like, we don't know that it was that. Like, nobody else could have slashed that tire, because my car was parked so far in the driveway behind a couple of people that just in the middle of nowhere, it never would have happened. Then my friend Tiffany is having a panic attack in and of herself, right? Because she's already really spooked by the events of the evening. She opens up that fresh pack of cigarettes. I kid you not. I watch her, and multiple people did, unwrap the top of the cigarette box. It was brand new. She opens that pack of cigarettes, and every single cigarette in the pack, except for one, was flipped upside down. Instead of one lucky cigarette that was flipped upside down, that like you would do when you open the pack, 19 cigarettes in that pack of cigarettes were flipped upside down, and there was only one that was right side up. Tiffany looked at me and started to scream. Then I brought the car to the mechanic, and they told me that somebody slashed my tires 10 times, and from that day on, I never did another Ouija board. Swear to God, this is a picture of what my tire looked like. Believe it or not, enjoy. True story. Spirits are real.
So someone asked me, why are Ouija boards so bad? Well, first of all, there's nothing magical about a Ouija board. Nothing at all. The point is, you're using this device for the sole purpose of communicating with the spirit world. You don't know who you're communicating with. Now, there will be people that say, oh, I can filter out the good from the bad. No, they can't. They cannot objectively absolute verify that. They just simply can't, because they can't do it. The moment that you begin playing with the Ouija board is the moment that you open the door, you've given the invitation. You don't know who you're speaking with. A demonic can easily say, I'm a child, or my name is Sally and I'm 5 years old. And then all of a sudden you begin thinking that you're communicating with a little child who's 5 years old, and you're not. I cannot tell you how many cases I have had to work and help families because it all started with the use of the Ouija board. It's not a game. It's very dangerous, and it is a form of summoning. Leave it alone.
I hope you enjoyed this compilation. If so, leave a comment below. Don't forget we're doing a giveaway. Details in the description box. This is your host, Michael, signing off. Be sure to join me on the next episode of The Creepy Collective. Until next time, stay vigilant and stay creepy.